How fast? Long Chen had a bad feeling. According to Evil Moon, the direct path that they had traversed should have allowed them to arrive before others. Furthermore, entering this core region had required Evil Moon to activate the power of a real dragon. That was the only reason why they could enter so easily. Others had to bypass a barrier set down by the Dragon King. Getting through it was very difficult and time-consuming. The fact that Feng Fei had arrived right after him meant that she had clearly come prepared. She must have a special method to enter as well. Long Chen stealthily glanced at the other person. He saw that he was small, like a child, startling him. Did Feng Fei have a son? Long Chen couldn't directly look at them for fear of being sensed. He could only try to see them in his peripheral vision. All he saw was that it was a very short person. It seemed that he only reached an adult's waist. However, eventually he was shocked to find that the shorty's face was black with a metallic luster. It was like he was made of steel. Furthermore, his aura was off. It didn't seem to be the aura of flesh and blood. This person gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. Someone else arrived first. He spoke, sounding fully mature, but his voice had a metallic tone that was ear-piercing. As soon as he spoke, Long Chen sensed the stones here quivering, as if some kind of energy within them was being activated by him. He's a dwarf. At this moment, Long Chen realized that even in terms of proportion, this person was off. His lower body was much shorter than the rest of him. Get out, or I'll give you a life worse than death. The dwarf sneered, his voice resounding throughout heaven and earth, stabbing into Long Chen's ears like millions of needles. This person's cultivation technique was extremely bizarre. Long Chen snorted inside. As expected, the people from the divine families were domineering. It seemed that he already viewed this place as belonging to him. For some reason, this person's voice sounded a bit familiar to Long Chen, as if he had heard it before. Based on his sharp memory, if he had seen such a person, there was no way that he would forget. Even if the other side had some ability to make others forget, it wouldn't affect him. Feng Fei, you can take the 4 divine bones. I'll go find that person, said the dwarf. Feng Fei frowned. Don't waste time. On my own, breaking the seal will take too long. It doesn't matter who it is. As long as they don't hinder us from taking the treasures, there's no need to kill them. There are more important things to do. Unacceptable. I've given them a chance to come up, and they didn't take it. So they can't blame me for being vicious, said the dwarf coldly. He suddenly opened his mouth and roared. A sharp sound resounded through the air, and the earth resonated with his voice. Even the platforms let out sharp cries. It was as if the entire world was returning his call. What kind of power is this? He can control the metal energy within all things? Is this a variant of the earth element? Long Chen's heart shook. This sharp sound stabbed into his soul. He couldn't defend against it, or it would create a reaction and he would be sensed. The divine families really are interesting. Another monster on this level has appeared. Fine, I have more important things to do, so I won't waste time on you. Long Chen snorted inside and placed a hand on a blood mark on the dragon scale. The dragon blood in his body shook, and he instantly vanished. Long Chen's body had just vanished when the void exploded. The dwarf appeared nearby, and he was surprised. Just now, he had sensed someone around here, but by the time he appeared, that person was gone. Get out here. Perhaps I can still spare your life, but if you don't. The dwarf smiled coldly and began to form hand seals. They're already gone. Hurry up and focus on getting the divine bones, said Feng Fei icily, clearly disapproving of his methods. Are you sure? Asked the dwarf. I couldn't confirm his position, but I could sense his spiritual fluctuations. Now they're gone, so he's already left. Although he was hiding his spiritual fluctuations, they felt a bit familiar. If my senses were correct, he was probably Long Chen, said Feng Fei. Long Chen? That genius from the Martial Heaven continent that the Long family is pulling in? I hear he has some power. He was smart to run, or I'd have killed him here, snorted the dwarf. Feng Fei frowned at him. It seems that you're leaning toward the Yi family and no longer being neutral? The dwarf arrogantly said, Zhao Ritian, stand on my own. I don't need to lean on anyone. Other people's grievances and favors have nothing to do with me. It's a shame that the four families' disciples aren't allowed to kill each other. The rankings between the four of us are based on our family rankings. The Zhao family was last in the last two rankings, which is clearly an insult, but do you really think that I am weaker than you three? Feng Fei looked at him and snorted. If you don't like it, you can also rank yourself first. Would that make you feel better? You. Zhao Ritian clenched his fists. Feng Fei's insult had touched a nerve. Stop wasting time. If you would rather go killing, then go. I'll take the divine bones myself. But don't blame me when I don't give you a share. We're the only ones to enter the star-field divine world. The other two went to resentful Death City. At that time, everyone will have advanced, while you gained nothing. Don't bark like a wild dog then, said Feng Fei. It seemed that she didn't like working together with this person. Feng Fei, don't think that just because your Jiang family has two sovereign sprouts that you can do whatever you want, shouted Zhao Ritian. If your Zhao family had two sovereign sprouts, you could do the same. Of course, if by yourself you could suppress me and my big brother, you could also do whatever you want. If you have that ability, then quickly take it out. If you don't, then stop talking so much. It would be best if you didn't act so arrogant in front of me. I don't need to give you face when it comes to my actions, said Feng Fei, also angered now. Feng Fei was a peerless heavenly genius, while Zhao Ritian was acting like he was above her and talking like everyone else should die. It was irritating. She hadn't wanted to enter the star-field divine world this time, mostly because she disliked this dwarf. Zhao Ritian was extremely annoying to her. She essentially hadn't spoken to him the entire way here because she thought that she might lose her temper and start fighting. She had endured all the way, but she had had enough. Seeing that she was angered, Zhao Ritian snorted. It was unknown if he felt that he was at a disadvantage or if there was no point in fighting. In the end, he stood beside Feng Fei and took out an ancient jade seal. He pressed it against the barrier. Both of their energies slowly entered the barrier. A pillar of light exploded out of the two of them. The barrier's power is so strong. Just how long is this going to take? Said Zhao Ritian impatiently. This barrier was created by a Dragon King. Although the Dragon King is dead, its soul essence has yet to fully fade. This barrier cannot be broken with brute force. We can only slowly draw out the Dragon King's power to weaken the barrier. With both of us working together, at this rate, it should take 2 months before all the energy is exhausted. Feng Fei then closed her eyes, ignoring him. That long? Fine, if someone else comes in, I'll just kill them. That way, it won't be boring, said Zhao Ritian. Zhao Ritian, I am warning you not to mess around. The four of us have always been living in the heavenly abode. We haven't come into contact with the martial heaven continent. However, the continent has also produced many geniuses. If you create enemies left and right, don't blame me for turning hostile if you cause me trouble, shouted Feng Fei. She truly found Zhao Ritian insufferable. Geniuses? You mean like Longchen? When he saw me, he was so scared that he didn't dare to reveal himself and directly fled. Such a person can be called a genius? Just living in the same world as me is his sin. Feng Fei, I don't want to be enemies with you. We are collaborating to take the divine bones. You should be clear on your own position and not meddle with my affairs, retorted Zhao Ritian. You're too arrogant. The corrupt paths Yi Ming, Pill Valley's Yu Qingxian, the elusive music immortal palaces Zi Yen, as well as that mysterious heir of the gambling heavenly Dao, none of them are ordinary. There are also the 4 everlasting families and the Dragon Blood Legion. If you make too many enemies and cause me to fail to take the divine bones, I will make you bear the responsibility for it. Feng Fei's expression sank. She had an urge to kill Zhao Ritian right here and now. Although Feng Fei had confidence in her skills, if so many of those people were angered and attacked the two of them together, although they would be able to survive, their goal of taking the divine bones would end in failure. They had discussed this from the start. They only wanted the 4 divine bones. If no one else came by the time they finished, then they would take the dragon body as well. However, if others came at that time, they couldn't expel them. They were already taking the main treasure. They had to leave others something. If they didn't, that would only force others to turn against them. Although Feng Fei was arrogant, her arrogance and conceit had their limits. But Zhao Ritian had none of that. He felt that he was the only one worth anything in this world, and he refused to let others even get a look at the treasures here since he felt that they were all his. Feng Fei was starting to grow uneasy. She had a kind of premonition that Zhao Ritian might bring a calamity upon the divine families one day. I don't need you to handle my matters. It just so happens that I can take a look at what the martial heaven continent has produced, and whether or not they're worth my attention, sneered Zhao Ritian. As he drew out the barrier's power, he kept a sharp look on the surroundings, a murderous light in his eyes. Through the dragon scales rune, Long Chen was transported into a different space. There was a giant blood pool here. Rather than calling it a blood pool, it should be called a blood sea. This blood thrummed with vigorous dragon energy. Standing here, Long Chen could sense countless dragons roaring. This is the 10,000 dragon pool. Only pure-blooded dragons that have received the approval of the Dragon King's heroic spirit can enter here. According to Evil Moon, I am the only human in this world in possession of true dragon essence blood, so I'm the only one who can enter. Long Chen examined the surroundings. He noticed that the shore had been turned red by the dragon blood. It was glowing. The dragon bone is the nest, while the dragon blood is the sea. The essence blood of successive generations of dragon experts has been accumulated here. Evil Moon said that when a dragon reaches its limit, when it senses its life starting to fade, it will extract its strongest aspect for its descendants. But 99% of this essence blood has been used up. It seems that the Dragon King must have encountered some terrifying enemy and used up the essence blood for combat power. But in the end, the Dragon King still died. Long Chen sighed. This blood pool was gigantic. But in comparison to its size, it could be said that what remained was only some dregs at the bottom of the pot. Despite just being some dregs, it was an enormous amount. Long Chen couldn't possibly use it all. For some reason, Long Chen was filled with regret for the Dragon King. Long Chen sat by the shore for a while before slowly approaching. The calm dragon pool began to boil when he approached. Roaring rang out in Long Chen's ears. He was no longer able to suppress the dragon blood flowing within his own veins. The Azure dragon battle armor was unleashed. Dragon roars resounded through the air. Long Chen couldn't control himself. He was unaware that the moment his Azure dragon battle armor came out, the Dragon King's body on the altar lit up, causing Feng Fei and Zhao Ritian to jump. If the Dragon King was still alive, then considering that the two of them were breaking the foundation of the dragon nest, they would definitely be killed. They turned pale, but they already knew that the divine races had long since discovered the dragon nest and confirmed that the Dragon King was dead. What was unleashing this dragon roar? The two of them stared at the Dragon King's body, bewildered. However, when nothing further happened, the two of them continued releasing the energy of the barrier. Long Chen had no idea that he had caused the Dragon King's corpse to react. He was now standing before the blood. The boiling blood had calmed down instantly when his Azure dragon battle armor came out. As the dragon blood in his veins raged, it unleashed a majestic might as if it was a king looking down on others. Those qualified to leave their blood here were all existences above the Nether Passage realm. But a king is a king. Even though my realm hasn't reached that level, the might of a king can suppress all others. The Azure dragon is a true dragon, but based on this, it seems that its origins are not ordinary, thought Long Chen. When Long Chen had obtained this Azure dragon essence blood, he had sworn an oath to the mysterious dragon expert. However, that expert had never communicated with him again, nor was there any connection between them. The green dragon essence blood and the Azure dragon essence blood had both come from the same dragon. Its essence blood was enough to make the blood belonging to tens of thousands of dragons submit. Long Chen dove into the pool. The essence blood didn't attack him. However, it also didn't express any friendliness. He felt as if it was coldly staring at him. Immense pressure came upon him from every direction within the blood pool, and if it wasn't for the Azure dragon battle armor, it would have been enough to crush his body. Long Chen quickly reached the bottom of the blood pool. Here he saw a fist-sized crystal. Blood essence stone, And one from a Dragon King at that. Long Chen couldn't help being shaken. Evil Moon had said that the Blood Essence Stone was the foundation of the 10,000 Dragon Nest. First came the Blood Essence Stone, then the 4 Divine Bones, and then the rest of the nest. The Blood Essence Stone was floating at the bottom of the pool and slowly spinning as it did so. Multicolored light shone in the surrounding space around it, but that light only stretched within 10 feet of it. Within that beautiful light was a terrifying power. Every strand of it possessed the power of a Dragon King. To the current Long Chen, just touching it might be fatal. The Dragon King was already dead, so this Blood Essence Stone was a masterless object. If he wanted to take it, it would definitely instinctively resist. This is crazy. Despite saying that, Long Chen still reached out. The instant he touched the barrier, the multicolored light within went berserk. Its killing intent made Long Chen's hair stand on end. He immediately retreated. If he angered this Blood Essence Stone, he would be instantly wiped out. What to do? Long Chen was stuck in a difficult place. His dragon blood could suppress other dragons' blood, but not the Blood Essence Stone of the Dragon King. The fact that the Blood Essence Stone hadn't directly attacked was most likely giving face to the true Dragon Essence blood within his body. It had just given a warning. If he tried again though, it would definitely attack. Long Chen just stared at it. As he didn't approach again, the violent light returned to calm. Long Chen extended a hand carefully, using his spiritual strength to express his good intentions. But either the Blood Essence Stone was declining to communicate with him, or it didn't have its own consciousness. It entered a berserk state once more, causing Long Chen to instantly pull his hand back. This time, he saw blood droplets come out of his arm. When he looked closely, he was shocked to find that his arm had cracked. This is the backlash? Damn, the Dragon King's power is so great. How could such a terrifying existence die? Long Chen was stunned. This Dragon King was truly worthy of admiration. No wonder Evil Moon had told him to be careful. If he couldn't obtain it, he shouldn't force it, or he would die. What a shame that the Dragon King is already dead. Perhaps if it was still alive, I could communicate with it. Now, it can only act instinctively. Long Chen sighed helplessly. This was a problem that intelligence could not resolve. As for power, that was nonsense. At this time, the old man would definitely accurately say that in front of this absolute power, no schemes would help. The Essence Bloodstone hadn't even directly attacked Long Chen, but just touching the power of a Dragon King was unbearable for him. Fine, I'll test my peerless move. Long Chen took a deep breath. Forming hand seals, the primal chaos space shuddered. Spatial energy enveloped the Essence Bloodstone. Suddenly, the Essence Bloodstone went berserk. Long Chen wanted to draw it into the primal chaos space, enraging it. A furious dragon cry rang out as it fought. The primal chaos space shuddered intensely, following which a sacred, indomitable aura rose. Long Chen was delighted. The Essence Bloodstone had finally provoked the primal chaos bead's power. Long Chen had never been clear on the primal chaos bead's power, but he knew it was an extremely terrifying existence. He just didn't know whether or not it could suppress the Essence Bloodstone. The Essence Bloodstone's light intensified. It seemed as if two formless powers were clashing. Suddenly, an explosive sound rang out from within the primal chaos space, and a boundless pressure appeared. The primal chaos bead seemed to be enraged. In front of that pressure, the Essence Bloodstone went still. Its power seemed to have been suppressed, and it began to float over. Long Chen was delighted. Just as he thought that he would be able to smoothly obtain it, cracking sounds rang out. Tiny cracks appeared all over the Essence Bloodstone. Long Chen jumped and immediately stopped the primal chaos bead. When its suction came to a stop, the Essence Bloodstone returned to its original location and appearance. Even in front of absolute power, it refuses to submit. It would rather break. Fine, it would be far too regretful to break such a divine treasure. Since it has no fate with me, I'll leave it to others. Long Chen sighed. Although he felt unwilling, he decided to give up. The primal chaos bead had once more proven its power, but regretfully he couldn't control it. He couldn't safely take the Essence Bloodstone. He had thought that all schemes were useless in front of absolute power. That principle received a blow now when he found that even with absolute power, he couldn't take the essence bloodstone. Fuck, is it really something requiring brains over brawn? Long Chen was extremely unwilling to leave things just like this. Calm down. I can think of something. Long Chen took a deep breath and sat to the side of the essence bloodstone. The multicolored light continued to shine brightly. It formed a beautiful image with the essence bloodstone at the core of the image. It was like a flower blooming. Long Chen was staring at it silently when he suddenly shot up. Could it be? A bone tile appeared in Long Chen's hand. There was also an image carved into it. Long Chen stared at it in disbelief. The instant the bone tile appeared, the blood pool went silent. The bone tile began to radiate the same light as the blood essence stone. Is this bone tile supposed to be used here? Long Chen slowly sent the bone tile toward the blood essence stone. This time, it didn't reject him. It allowed him to get closer and closer until he actually touched it. In that instant, his vision darkened and the blood pool was gone. A white-haired elder appeared before him. The white-haired elder was skinny and had his back to him. His hands were clasped behind him. He slowly turned around when Long Chen appeared. The first thing that Long Chen noticed were his eyes. They were eyes that could see through the world, eyes that had seen the transformations of the universe. Those eyes were full of wisdom. He felt like they could see through all his secrets. The elder seemed startled to see Long Chen. I didn't expect that the one I was waiting for would be a human with true dragon essence blood. The elder's voice was gentle. Every one of his words seemed to possess an unfathomable intelligence, as if every word contained a kind of Tao. Junior Long Chen greets Senior. Long Chen hastily bowed, wondering to himself if this person was the master of the 10,000 dragon nest. The elder nodded. How curious. Are you Yun Shang's descendant? No. Sovereign Yun Shang and I have only met once. Long Chen was startled. Then that's strange. Yun Shang told me that his descendant would one day come with that bone tile. But you have true dragon essence blood, and your aura is completely different from Yun Shang's. It's hard to believe. The elder paused, seemingly encountering some difficulty. Senior, did Sovereign Yun Shang have an agreement with you back in the day? Probed Long Chen. The elder nodded. Back then, Yun Shang arrived just as I entered the final stage of my battle against the heaven-devouring evil king. If it wasn't for Yun Shang, I would have died to the heaven-devouring evil king, and he would have activated the heaven-devouring soul recollection art to revive a portion of his fallen black armor warriors, destroying the star-field divine world. It was Yun Shang who came at a critical moment to help me, but I had exhausted my source by then. I didn't even have a chance to undergo nirvanic rebirth. To thank Yun Shang, I left the 10,000 dragon nest to him. But he didn't want it, saying that his descendant would need it in the future. I gave him this crystal bone as a token of trust, and then I ran out of energy. Just as I died, I left behind my soul essence to guard this place in wait for the person with the crystal bone. Now you've come, but you aren't Yun Shang's descendant. You also possess true dragon essence blood. This karma is incomprehensible to me. Furthermore, as just a wisp of soul essence, I no longer have the power to divine anything. Long Chen was shocked. Did Sovereign Yun Shang have descendants? That didn't make sense. The sovereigns were all solitary figures who didn't even have wives. How could they have children? Long Chen said, since Sovereign Yun Shang left it to his descendant, then this treasure should have no fate with me. I'll take my leave. I apologize for disturbing you. If it was someone else's treasures, then he might fight over them. But if it was something that Sovereign Yun Shang had left for someone else, then there had to be a deeper meaning behind it. He couldn't fight over it. Slow down. The elder shook his head. The karma involved in this must have grown muddled somewhere. Yun Shang was the son of the heavens. He possessed heavenly fate eyes capable of seeing the past and future. He wouldn't have made such a mistake in theory, but you've still come. Whether or not you are Yun Shang's descendant, you have to take the blood essence stone. The crystal bone has already broken the barrier. I no longer have the power to protect it. This crystal bone can also break the barrier outside so that you can take the 4 divine bones. That doesn't seem too suitable. Long Chen hesitated. Of course, you don't have to take them. You can leave them for others to take. It's up to you, said the elder. Well, if it's just going to benefit others, I'd rather it benefit me. Long Chen smiled. How curious. Although you're a human, you have true dragon essence blood, and it has practically flawlessly merged with you. No spirit root but capable of using all elements. No spirit bone but capable of manifesting all living things. Well, it doesn't matter. I don't have the energy to divine it. Our meeting can also count as destiny. Your Azure Dragon Essence blood is pure, but it's lacking in power. Even though you have refined it, the power you can control is still limited. You can't even use the dragon race's divine abilities. Let me help you cleanse your Azure Dragon Essence blood and send my own essence blood into your body. With how easily you could assimilate with true dragon essence blood, you should be able to perfectly control my power. As for how many of the dragon race's divine abilities you can control, it'll depend on your own power. The elder placed a hand on Long Chen's shoulder. He seemed a bit curious, as if he wanted to know what would happen if Long Chen absorbed his dragon blood. Senior, you can't, exclaimed Long Chen. Why not? The elder was startled. This was something any human would dream of obtaining. Senior, when I was in great danger, I was saved by the owner of this essence blood. If it weren't for that dragon, I would have died. I have an agreement with that senior to help them accomplish one thing. Even though so many years have passed, they have never told me anything. If I were to cleanse their dragon blood, that senior might not be able to find me. Then I would have broken our agreement. That is a betrayal, said Long Chen. Just as Long Chen spoke, within a distant starry sky, a dragon that had transcended time and space slowly opened one of its eyes. Its eye was bigger than a star. Within the countless stars reflected in its eyes, there was one particular speck of dust that drew his attention. A mark appeared in its eye. That eye quivered ever so slightly and then passed through the void. After that, the giant eye closed. How boring! A voice resounded through the star. That voice was icy cold, yet also seemed to contain a trace of gratification. Suddenly, a mark appeared in the elder's eyes. That mark was identical to the mark that had appeared within the giant eye. So that's the case. The elder suddenly laughed. He pressed down on Long Chen's body, and a majestic power poured inside of him. Senior Fu. Long Chen was shocked and enraged. Stop! Long Chen unleashed his full power. As a result, blood qi furiously crashed within his body. He was trying to force out the elder's dragon blood, but now his body was automatically absorbing it. It felt like lava was pouring into his body. Are you a bastard or just sick in the head? Roared Long Chen. However, no matter how he resisted, it didn't have any use. He wanted to use the primal chaos bead's power, but he didn't know how to use it. It never listened to his orders. This elder was not a thing that he could suck in. Ha! What an interesting brat. The elder laughed instead of getting angry. Seeing Long Chen's veins throbbing and how murderous he looked, the elder said, I'm not cleansing your dragon blood, nor do I have that ability. I am simply helping you make up for some dragon chi that you are lacking. The Azure Dragon reverse scale that you obtained was a bit deficient in essence blood due to some unexpected events when the scale fell from its master. Furthermore, after tens of thousands of years, the essence of it slowly faded. By the time you obtained it, it had lost most of its essence, resulting in you being unable to awaken the dragon race's divine abilities when you refined it. How do you know all this? Asked Long Chen. The elder smiled and didn't reply directly. I am now trying to use my essence blood to stimulate your true dragon essence blood. That will strengthen your dragon blood power, strengthening your physical body. If you're lucky, perhaps you can obtain that expert's divine abilities. However, that process will be very painful, so you have to be mentally prepared. Long Chen was delighted. I'm prepared. As long as you don't wash away my original dragon blood, I'm not afraid of any pain. The elder nodded. The mark appeared in his eyes once more. All right, then I'm beginning. Although Long Chen was prepared, when the pain started, he clenched his teeth so hard that they almost shattered. Within his body, it felt like thorns were passing through his veins. He felt all his nerves instantly become taut. His hair stood on end. However, he didn't make a sound. The elder nodded. Not bad. Even amongst the dragon race, not many could endure this pain. However, you cannot faint. Closely examine your dragon blood as it flows through your veins. That's the only way you will be able to perfectly control any divine abilities that you awaken. Long Chen did his best to nod. He couldn't speak because of the pain. The more painful it was, the sharper his senses grew. Runes began to appear within his blood. Once they appeared, they entered his head. A rune appeared on his forehead, gradually growing clearer until it began to shine brightly. Boom! Divine light exploded out of Long Chen. Long Chen's blood qi instantly ignited, and a dragon cry resounded through the space. The rune on Long Chen's forehead slowly faded. Long Chen felt as if something new had appeared in his memories. Long Chen slowly extended a hand. Lines had appeared within one of the scales on his palm. When he clenched his fist, space shuddered and rumbled. Just by clenching his fist, ripples appeared in the void. This is... Long Chen was startled and delighted. He looked at the rune on his palm with disbelief. The Azure Dragon Seal? I didn't expect you to awaken this divine ability, said the elder. Is this move very amazing? Asked Long Chen excitedly. This Azure Dragon Seal, amongst the adult true dragon race's 30 divine abilities, it is the weakest, said the elder hesitantly. What? I feel like it's very powerful. Long Chen looked at his hands. The power from the upgraded scale made him feel like he could tear apart the void. How could this be the weakest? To the true dragon race, the Azure Dragon Seal is the least useful technique. It is sometimes used to strengthen one part of the body. But the true dragon race's physical body is incomparably powerful, so this technique is meaningless. It is the weakest in defensive power and killing power. Cough, you wouldn't be feeling bad about me saying these things, right? The elder seemed embarrassed to say these things. No, it's not your fault. It might be meaningless to the dragon race, but it's useful to me. I'm not a true dragon, so I can strengthen my body with this. I'll be able to take on divine items with my bare hands now. My strongest fighting style is close range, so this Azure Dragon Seal is perfect for me, said Long Chen with a laugh. Alright, I was feeling pity for you, but now it seems that you like this technique. I won't mention the other world-destroying divine abilities of the true dragon race. This attitude of yours is truly good. Just how many cultivators could achieve this kind of calm? No wonder that the elder suddenly shut his mouth. Long Chen didn't notice this oddity. He said, my luck has always been bad, so if I didn't have a way to comfort myself, I'd have probably killed myself a long time ago. I'm used to it. Senior, are you the Dragon King? I feel like this dragon nest's growth and birth seems to reflect the growth of the entire cosmos. Can you let me see how the 10,000 dragon nest was created? The principles behind the 10,000 dragon nest were related to the essence of the universe. The elder stared at Long Chen and suddenly laughed. Everyone who comes here comes in search of treasure, but none of them realizes what the true treasure is. Congratulations, you are the first one capable of seeing so deeply. Long Chen probed, Senior, are you about to say something along the lines of but, however, unfortunately, and such? Haha. The elder laughed heartily before saying, however, unfortunately, this treasure isn't something that can be given. It can only be comprehended by oneself. This is a true grand Tao, something that cannot be transmitted through the mouth, nor can it be written down. The secrets of the universe are seen differently by everyone. All right, I don't really get it, but it sounds pretty amazing. Since I can't have it for now, I won't think about it, said Long Chen. He knew that he wouldn't have good enough luck to obtain such a treasure. If someone as powerful as this unimaginably strong Dragon King refused to tell him, then he had to have his reasons. Perhaps even he didn't dare to break some taboos. Is the one down in the dragon source that's absorbing my energy your friend? Asked the elder suddenly. Ah, you must be talking about Evil Moon. Yes, that's my life and death partner, said Long Chen. Are you sure? It used to be someone stronger than me. By absorbing the energy of the dragon source, it is weakening Yun Shang's seal. The dark evil dragon race is the most bloodthirsty, most violent, and most evil of the evil dragons. I still have some power and can stop it if you wish. Otherwise, once Yunshang's seal is broken, the first one it will devour is you, warned the elder. No, I trust it completely. Evil Moon will not betray me. It's not just my weapon or a gambling chip. I trust Evil Moon with my life. Senior, please allow it to absorb whatever it wants, said Long Chen. Although Evil Moon was wicked, for some reason, Long Chen sometimes formed a resonance with it. Perhaps he himself was also wicked, making them a perfect match. Birds of a feather flock together? He didn't know, but he refused to believe that Evil Moon would betray him. What he didn't know was that his conversation with this elder was being heard word for word by Evil Moon. What a fool! Evil Moon sighed. Now it understood why Yunshang had left it to Long Chen. It found that it was being infected by Long Chen's feelings. An existence who had never had feelings to move was finally moved. The word partner had felt completely foreign to it before. The elder nodded. Then I won't bother it. Let's talk about the Azure Dragon Seal. It is a dragon blood rune that can enter an offensive and defensive state. When you clenched your fist, it was in an offensive state, but you still haven't gained control over its essentials. It is different from the human race's magical arts. There is nothing about the cooperation between the heart, mind, and soul. Due to being the most basic divine ability, it also has no hand seals. It only requires the correct application of your essence blood. The elder raised a finger and touched Long Chen's shoulder. Just like that, Long Chen's shoulder was pierced. Blood splattered, and the pain startled Long Chen. Senior, despite his current state with the Azure Dragon battle armor, this elder casually injured him without him being able to resist. If the elder wanted to kill him, wouldn't he be dead in one blow? The elder pointed at his wound, and only when Long Chen looked closely did he see runes appear on the dragon scales around the wound. Those runes were healing his wound without him circulating his life energy. In just a few seconds, the wound healed. Do you see? The rune is the same, but the color is different. The red rune represents offense, while green represents defense. If you were part of the dragon race, you wouldn't need to actively defend. Your dragon blood would automatically switch from offense to defense to block this attack. However, you haven't nurtured the reactions of your dragon blood, causing it to be too slow. It should have instantly healed, but instead took this long. If you want to control this technique, you'll need to work hard on controlling your essence blood. Here, attack me now with your most proficient technique, said the elder. With almost no hesitation, Long Chen unleashed a slap. It was only once his hand was moving that he realized this was wrong, and he hastily switched it to a claw toward the elder's chest. Long Chen's movements were extremely fast, but the elder easily caught Long Chen's wrist. He instantly felt like his wrist had been caught by a steel lock. He found himself unable to use the slightest bit of power. Long Chen was startled by this. Was this the power of a Dragon King? No, the Dragon King had lost his physical body and was nothing more than a strand of soul essence. How could he possess such power? Just how strong had he been before? Your movements were incorrect. For humans, it is correct for the will to move first. But the dragon race uses brute power. Our fighting style is violent and domineering. It is direct with the goal being to crush all opposition. As long as you are strong enough, it doesn't matter what technique you use. Even a fart can make an army collapse. If you aren't strong enough, then no matter what technique you use, it's just a monkey's play. You won't be able to resonate with your dragon blood if you fight like this. Without the power of your dragon blood supporting you, the rune will become weak. Try again. This time, don't use your spiritual yuan or soul energy. Forget about them. Use only brute power. That is the power of the physical body, said the elder, pushing Long Chen back several steps. His gaze became sharp like a strict teacher. Long Chen gratefully nodded. He took a deep breath and clenched his fists. His essence blood flowed within his body rapidly, rumbling. A rune lit up on his fist. Just as Long Chen began to accumulate power, his essence blood began to boil, and power burst through his veins like a volcano exploding. At this moment, Long Chen experienced what it meant for his dragon blood to resonate with the Azure dragon seal. He easily condensed all his power into his fist. With a shout, Long Chen smashed his fist at the elder. The void collapsed, as if unable to bear this power. The elder exploded. The space that they were in vanished, and the red essence stone appeared in front of him. "Senior!" Long Chen let out a startled cry. However, no one replied. It was like everything had been a dream. Long Chen stared at the essence blood stone in front of him. Eventually, Long Chen bowed deeply toward the essence blood stone and took it. Upon touching it, he felt a close connection to it. He knew that the Dragon King had inserted the essence blood within the stone into his body, resulting in this connection. Long Chen realized that its power had weakened immensely. He estimated that the elder had inserted at least half of its power into his body. Within the blood pool, all the essence blood of the dragons prostrated toward him. It was as if he had become the Dragon King. Long Chen formed a hand seal, sucking the blood pool and the essence blood stone into the primal chaos space. After that, Long Chen returned to the entrance. When he passed through the barrier, he once more appeared beneath the reverse scale of the Dragon King's corpse. He had only just appeared when countless sharp arrows shot toward him. The sharp arrows pierced through the air so quickly that Long Chen didn't even have time to dodge. This was a perfectly timed trap. Despite doing his best, his shoulder and arm were pierced. It was unknown what material they were made of, but they managed to ignore the defenses of his dragon scales. When his body was pierced, some kind of energy attached to the arrows caused his flesh to begin hardening. It started to transform into black steel. "Ah, little brat, I told you to get out here but you refused. Now even if you kneel and beg for mercy, it won't work." Laughter rang out. The dwarf appeared in front of Long Chen, looking down on him disdainfully. "Idiot, now that you've injured me, even if you kneel and beg for mercy, it won't work." Long Chen's killing intent instantly erupted. He had been careless. This sneak attack might have pierced his head if he hadn't been in his peak state with the Azure Dragon battle armor active. 2 chunks of metal fell from his wounds. He had never seen this kind of power before, and if his own power wasn't strong enough to force this strange energy out, it would probably have only taken a few breaths' time before he turned into a metal statue. If struck in the head, then that would be extremely dangerous. Zhao Ritian, Long Chen can count as an ally of the divine families. Don't go too far. This matter can end here. Long Chen live, said Feng Fei. An ally? What a farce. After being away for a few years, have the divine families fallen to the extent of needing allies? Brat, everything here belongs to me, so if you want to leave, hand over whatever treasures you got, demanded Zhao Ritian. He clearly knew that during the time Long Chen had been gone, it was very likely that he had obtained some treasure. Who do you think you are to act arrogant in front of me? Long Chen stepped forward and unleashed a punch. You really are a fool. Do you think you're qualified to attack me? Zhao Ritian sneered and also unleashed a punch. Although Zhao Ritian was short, his punch caused heaven and earth to quiver along with him. Even without his manifestation appearing, specks of light manifested in the air like stars. His body of flesh and blood instantly transformed into metal. It was a bizarre sight. Their 2 fists collided, but the sound was off, sounding more like 2 metallic fists colliding. Long Chen's fist was covered in dragon scales. It was like he was wearing a set of tough gloves. Zhao Ritian was knocked back a dozen steps, his fist gone. It had been destroyed but no blood flowed out. It was just like a piece of blown-up metal. The power of his physical body is enough to break Zhao Ritian's million-metal body? Feng Fei's pupils shrank. She was well aware of how powerful Zhao Ritian was. He was born with an innate body of metal. He could control all metal within the world. His body was no longer flesh and blood but an undying body of metal. Divine items couldn't break it, but a punch from Long Chen could. You're a bit interesting. Killing you will be fun. Zhao Ritian looked at his hand that had been blown up and laughed. His metallic body quickly healed, not even leaving a mark where his wound had been. Your laughter is really hateful. I feel like I've heard it before. Long Chen stared at Zhao Ritian. Suddenly he icily asked, "Back in the immemorial path, there were 4 idiots undergoing tribulations. One of them sounded like you." Zhao Ritian's expression instantly changed. Killing intent exploded out of him. "You bastard, that was you? You ruined our tribulation. We had to undergo a second tribulation that was unbearably painful to make up for that." Zhao Ritian furiously attacked. "So it really was you. Good, then we can settle our old and new enmities together." Long Chen was also enraged. Those 4 idiots had almost gotten Yu Shaoqian killed. He always remembered this enmity. "Who do you think you are? I'll crush you into rotten flesh in an instant," roared Zhao Ritian. His body exploded with light. Countless runes lit up, turning him into an unstoppable monster made of 1,000,000 metals. "Then I'll crush you into rotten metal." Long Chen faced Zhao Ritian's furious charge with his fists. Runes lit up on Long Chen's fists. Every punch caused the void to collapse. When they landed on Zhao Ritian, although they no longer caused his body to explode like their first exchange, they still left large dents in his metallic body. However, Long Chen's fists also received repercussions. Zhao Ritian's body was incredibly hard, even harder than divine items. Long Chen had just knocked Zhao Ritian back when Zhao Ritian opened his mouth. All of a sudden, his tongue transformed into a sharp sword piercing toward Long Chen's head. Long Chen hastily twisted his neck, causing the tongue to leave a long cut along his forehead. The wound quickly turned black and began to metallize. Long Chen grabbed Zhao Ritian's tongue and then kicked Zhao Ritian's jaw. Zhao Ritian was kicked away, while half of a sharp sword remained in Long Chen's hand. Long Chen wiped his forehead, tearing off the lump of metal that appeared there, before once more charging at Zhao Ritian. Just at that moment, this space quivered. Several people appeared from multiple directions. Long Chen, a woman with a bow on her back, was startled after seeing the scene before her. She was Beitang Rushuang, and she had entered along with Nangong Zuyu. Others had also come at the same time from other directions. Some of them were from the corrupt path, while some were from neutral powers. However, those people weren't particularly famous. Most likely, they were rather low-key and liked to conceal their power. If they weren't strong enough, there was no way they could have reached this point. "Senior Feng Fei, what is happening here?" asked Nangong Zuyu. She quickly saw the giant dragon corpse as well as the barrier around the 4 divine bones. Was this a fight for the treasures? This is a personal grievance between the 2 of them that has nothing to do with others. However, these 4 divine bones belong to the divine families. "All the other treasures are up to your own luck," said Feng Fei coldly. Clearly, she was announcing that the main treasure, the 4 divine bones, was hers. Her tone was quite domineering. The other experts' expressions changed as they knew what a divine bone signified. Feng Fei was occupying all 4 of them with just a word. She had gone too far. Are the divine families really going to act like this? Based on what? Demanded someone. "Based on the fact that we arrived here first," snorted Feng Fei. "I got here before you, so why don't you just scram?" sneered Long Chen as he punched Zhao Ritian back. Long Chen didn't have good feelings toward the divine families. Even the peerlessly beautiful Feng Fei had a dislikable tone. A group of ants dare to fight a dragon? If you want the treasures, then bring out your power. If you don't want to live any longer, why not try to fight against us? Shouted Zhao Ritian arrogantly as he charged back at Long Chen. As a result, he had just gotten close to Long Chen when he was sent flying back by a kick. The power of this kick created shocking ripples in the void. "If you want to fight over them, go ahead. But don't blame me for being merciless at that time," said Feng Fei icily. The other experts twitched. They looked at the 4 divine bones but didn't dare to go over there. "Long Chen, do you want our help? The divine families have really gone too far." Beitang Rushuang sent Long Chen a spiritual message. Feng Fei and Zhao Ritian's arrogant and domineering actions had angered her. "Not yet. You and Miss Nangong should go over to the Dragon King's body and try to comprehend its power." "I'm going to test out this dwarf's power," replied Long Chen. A dragon corpse was a treasure in and of itself. Every scale contained its own Dao charm. Although the Dragon King was already dead, the Dao charm remained. Gaining comprehension from it and corroborating your own Dao from it would be very beneficial. Nangong Zuyu looked from Feng Fei to Long Chen and Zhao Ritian. In the end, she chose to walk over to the dragon's corpse. Following her, the others also made their moves. But rather than going toward the corpse, they went around the altar in search of other treasures. Beitang Rushuang and Nangong Zuyu trusted Long Chen's choice. He had to have already explored the surroundings and knew that there was nothing better than the dragon corpse. Long Chen, do you only have this little bit of power? Asked Zhao Ritian. The two of them were still fighting with their hands and feet, neither suppressing the other. Shouldn't I be the one saying that? Back in the immemorial path, you all acted like heavenly kings, but didn't you still tuck your tails between your legs and run? Don't play this kind of game with me. You want me to ask my friends to fight you together so you have a reason to carry out a slaughter? An idiot like you shouldn't try to play mind games with me, sneered Long Chen. He forced Zhao Ritian back with a punch and then shook out his hands. A smile gradually appeared on his face. He was coming to grasp what the Dragon King had told him about using his dragon blood to fight. Haha. Suddenly, the space shook once more. An arrogant and wretched laugh rang out. I hereby announce that all the treasures here belong to me, Emon Yen. No one can touch them. Emon Yen appeared in the air. With his arrival, Long Chen's aura suddenly explosively grew. His blood chi raged within him. Emon Yen, cover me. I want to kill someone today. Long Chen was precisely waiting for Emon Yen to arrive. For him to only arrive at this time must mean that he had taken the wrong path, costing him quite a bit of time. With Emon Yen here, Long Chen no longer had any misgivings. His Azure Dragon Essence blood began to fill his body with power. Hey, wait a minute. Long Chen, when did you become so classless? You're going to bully a child? Emon Yen looked at the short Zhao Ritian in confusion. This was definitely an act. He had to have noticed that Zhao Ritian was a dwarf but still called him a child. With just a word, Emon Yen had stabbed Zhao Ritian where it hurt. Zhao Ritian had been born with his metal body. Due to awakening his talent too early, his body was unable to grow like others. That was the source of the darkness in his heart. Die! Zhao Ritian furiously pointed a finger, and an arrow shot at Emon Yen. Watch out, warned Long Chen, worried that Emon Yen would underestimate Zhao Ritian's power. Bang! Zhao Ritian's arrow exploded in midair as if it had been struck by an invisible arrow. Fragments shot out in every direction. Quite a few fragments landed in the ground, causing lumps of metal to start growing. Emon Yen exclaimed, Damn, you can turn things into metal? Not bad. Little fellow, are you interested in opening a blacksmith shop with me? Emon Yen had not witnessed this kind of power before, but his mouth did not spare Zhao Ritian. He managed to turn Zhao Ritian's innate divine ability into a tool for making a living. You dare to blaspheme me? I'll kill you. Zhao Ritian's eyes turned scarlet. Short, your opponent is me. Long Chen blocked Zhao Ritian's path. Die. Zhao Ritian was further enraged, and his hands clawed toward Long Chen as if wanting to tear him apart. His claws reached Long Chen instantaneously, but before they could touch him, a hand struck him in the face from a strange angle, causing his metallic face to distort. He smashed into the ground. A wave of earth shocked the experts that had arrived. Zhao Ritian's head had been flattened by Long Chen. It no longer looked like a head. Instead, it was like a pot lid. The power of that slap was so immense that others couldn't believe it. Even Long Chen stared at his palm in surprise. In their fight, Zhao Ritian had been acting like he was merely even with Long Chen as bait to make others join forces against him. That way, he would have a reason to kill them all. However, Long Chen had not used his full power either. He had not even displayed his face-slapping divine art. That was because he was worried about Zhao Ritian going crazy and starting a slaughter before Emon Yen arrived. Now that Emon Yen was here, Long Chen didn't need to worry about the others. He directly used his slap. This technique, which was originally just a humiliating blow to the mind, had now become a peerless attack. There probably weren't many people capable of receiving it. Emon Yen, Nangong Zuyu, and Beitang Rushuang were all startled at Zhao Ritian's current appearance. He no longer appeared human. Zhao Ritian's head tottered. Stars were spinning in his mind. Although he didn't have a body of flesh, this slap had been truly vicious, causing him to temporarily lose his senses. If it was another expert, not even a trace of their skull would remain. Haha. Long Chen laughed excitedly. This was power, true power. The power of the dragon was used through the flesh and blood. By using his spiritual yuan to control it, it naturally grew sluggish. With the Dragon King's pointers, Long Chen basked in the sensation of being in control of such immense power. The other experts were stunned because the current Long Chen had yet to even bring out his signature technique, his divine ring. Just by using the power of his physical body, he had unleashed such terrifying power. Long Chen definitely isn't human. How could a human possess such a physical body? Guessed one of those experts. Amongst everyone present, the one who was the most shocked was Feng Fei. Only she was aware of just how monstrous Zhao Ritian's million-metal body was. However, that body was like dough in front of Long Chen. Very good, Long Chen. You've managed to fully enrage me. Zhao Ritian's flattened head returned to its normal state. A harsh light shone in his eyes. That has to be an undying body. A chill ran through the experts witnessing this. Zhao Ritian seemed to have no weaknesses. Even with his head flattened, he wasn't injured. Fighting an undying body like that would make a person give up hope. Zhao Ritian sinisterly said, "Back in the immemorial path, I think I recall that you mentioned your name, but I'm not in the habit of remembering other people's names. I didn't even recall it when I heard your name. But I'll remember it now. You're the first one qualified to be killed by me ever since I came from the battlefield against the other races." The earth began to shake. The ground suddenly split open, and a torrent of mountain peaks began to spurt out of the ground like bamboo after a spring rain. Those mountains were all different colors, but they had a metallic luster to them. They seemed made out of metal. Everyone's jaws dropped. They realized that these mountains were solid objects made of immortal and divine metals. Damn, ignoring how strong this shorty Zhao is, his metal-controlling powers are enough to make him become the richest man alive. Mo Nian was also stunned. Looking at the endless precious metals coming out of the ground, his eyes reddened. Wouldn't someone with this power have an endless supply of divine materials? Zhao Ritian's body was an unending source of treasures. Nangong Zuyu shook her head. That is impossible. His own ability makes it so that he has to exhaust endless resources just to activate it. The legends say that the million-metal body requires all kinds of materials to be absorbed once the body's innate divine abilities are awakened. The more metal energy he absorbs, the stronger he grows. The amount of resources he has absorbed has to be unimaginable. Even if an entire world's power was gathered just for him, it still might not be enough to feed him. He is most likely forced to constantly wander through worlds gathering their metal energy for himself. Perhaps only the divine families have the ability to raise such a terrifying monster. We are now within his manifestation. This place has become his world, a world full of metal energy. What are you talking about? The dragon corpse and altar are still there. How is this place his manifestation? Asked Mo Nian. Nangong Zuyu answered, as long as there is metal within the world, he is capable of assimilating it. These mountains were brought forth by his energy. He can use their energy as he pleases. Do you see the metallic mountains behind him? Those aren't physical objects but his manifestation. His manifestation's power has merged with reality, turning him into the ruler of this world. Long Chen is correct. This person is incredibly vicious and sinister. He was acting weak in hopes that we would help Long Chen, giving him enough reason to kill us all. Due to awakening his divine ability too early, he was stuck in his dwarf form. His heart grew twisted then, resulting in this nature. I can see the brutality in his eyes. Nangong Zuyu was worried. For such a brutal person to appear amongst the divine families was not a good thing. Such a person could no longer be judged according to a normal person's logic. His twisted heart made it almost impossible to work together with him. No need to worry. Long Chen will definitely beat him to death, said Emon Yen with a smile. He wasn't worried at all. Nangong Zuyu shook her head. The million metal body is a kind of undying body. His body has no weak points, and his energy comes from the world and his manifestation. No matter how strong a person is, how are they supposed to fight against an entire world? Even if Long Chen can fight with Zhao Ritian evenly for a time, Zhao Ritian's energy will replenish infinitely, while Long Chen's energy is slowly ground down. We have to be ready to help as soon as Long Chen can't endure any longer. The first thing to do is break his manifestation. Nangong Zuyu's steady nature had her preparing a backup plan. Zhao Ritian was absolutely terrifying. Just as she was speaking, the terrain continued to change. The world had been completely transformed. The altar was now surrounded by mountains of metal, and this place had become a world of metal. A metallic ringing was constantly present. It was as if the very air was being infected. Long Chen, your close female friend is worried about you being beaten by that short Zhao. I told her that he isn't a match for you, and that you could crush him just by taking off your pants and pissing on him. I've finished bragging for you, so don't turn me into a liar. Emon Yen cupped his hands over his mouth and shouted loudly. Zhao Ritian's hair stood on end from fury. His body transformed, going from black to every color of the rainbow. The mountains shuddered and space froze. Everyone present felt like they were bound by countless invisible chains. They couldn't move. They were appalled. Zhao Ritian was targeting Long Chen, but they were still affected to this extent. Then the pressure that Long Chen was under must be unimaginable. Taste my fist. Zhao Ritian unleashed a punch, his fist shining with multicolored divine light. This was a fist that contained the power to destroy heaven and earth. Even tasting 10 of your fists would be nothing, mocked Long Chen. Zhao Ritian had now become the ruler of this world. Every one of his movements was backed by immense power. If it was before he had entered the 10,000 dragon nest, Long Chen would know that he wasn't a match for such an opponent. But his current self was confident. His divine ring appeared behind him with 108,000 stars shining within it, matching the 108,000 dragon scales that appeared on his body. Long Chen also unleashed a punch, meeting Zhao Ritian's fist head-on. A blinding light exploded when their two fists collided. The other experts felt like the world had compressed. A sharp pain crashed down on their chests. It felt like their hearts would explode. Runes appeared on Long Chen's fist as he felt the dragon blood in his veins igniting. The essence blood that the Dragon King had given him was nourishing the Azure Dragon essence blood. Long Chen immediately realized that in order to refine his Azure Dragon essence blood with the Dragon King's blood, battle was necessary. As his blood ignited, power poured throughout his body. His power only grew as he fought. Divine light exploded out of Long Chen and Zhao Ritian's fists. Fluctuations surged out of them so violently that others couldn't breathe. I didn't expect you to have some ability. This should be fun. Zhao Ritian was surprised but not afraid. He got excited. It's not just some ability. Long Chen snorted. His legs suddenly kicked out like lightning. Zhao Ritian didn't dodge. He allowed Long Chen's kick to land right on his abdomen. But what shocked everyone was that Long Chen's kick easily passed through Zhao Ritian's abdomen. Barbs suddenly grew out of Zhao Ritian's abdomen, latching onto Long Chen's leg. Sparks flew as those barbs were unable to pierce Long Chen's leg. Long Chen hastily retreated, escaping this strange attack. Fortunately, the Azure Dragon Seal has a defensive state that can be instantly switched to. Looking at those sharp barbs, Long Chen was shocked. Zhao Ritian's fighting style had surpassed the scope of a human body. He could not be judged according to normal standards. If caught off guard, one of his strange moves might end the battle in an instant. The Dragon King had said that because Long Chen wasn't a true dragon, he was unable to reach the point of activating both the offensive and defensive states. He could only switch between them. To have his defenses weakened when he attacked was definitely a large flaw. However, when he reached the point of perfectly controlling his dragon blood, the speed at which he could switch between the two states would be like lightning, making up for this flaw as much as possible. The fact that Long Chen had succeeded in switching to defense against this sudden move proved that his control over his dragon blood had reached an extremely high level. Long Chen, the more you struggle, the more pleased I'll feel when I kill you. Zhao Ritian smiled sinisterly like a bloodthirsty beast. Long Chen suddenly laughed and shook his head. Let me put it to you this way. I don't even know how many idiots like you I've killed from the eastern wasteland to the central plains. They all had one thing in common, which was their conceited arrogance. They thought that everyone else in the world should kneel to them, as if they were gods in charge of this world. That's right. This world is precisely that way. The strong are venerated. Some people, such as myself, are to be respected as the rulers of this world. The rest of you are just accessories to us, and your light is only created to accent our growth. A green leaf remains a green leaf no matter what. When it wants to compete with the red flower, it is seeking its own death, sneered Zhao Ritian. Mo Nian raged. Long Chen, what are you doing? I can't even endure this any longer. If you keep holding back, I'll take your place to kill this bastard. He's really hateful. Noisy. Once I kill Long Chen, you'll be next. Zhao Ritian suddenly summoned a pair of metal wings. They were as sharp as blades, and a thundering boom rang out every time they flapped. He shot toward Long Chen. I really can't endure your unchanging act. Long Chen finally lost his temper. Zhao Ritian's arrogance was incomparably infuriating. A majestic dragon roar erupted. Long Chen's dragon blood began to thunder as it poured through his veins. A sharp pain filled Long Chen. This was the result of not being fully accustomed to his dragon blood's new power. Now that the Dragon King had made up for his original Azure Dragon Essence blood's deficiency, his power had leaped to a new level. If he could fight against Zhao Ritian for a bit longer and slowly adjust to it, it wouldn't be so painful. But he was too enraged to be that patient. Zhao Ritian was looking down on Long Chen and trying to force him to use up his energy without using his own trump cards. Why was that? Because he wanted to exhaust Long Chen so that he wouldn't be able to run. His goal was not to beat him, but to kill him. It was just like how Long Chen had killed Tian Xiezi. Long Chen had exhausted all his trump cards. Now Zhao Ritian was doing the same thing to him. Long Chen no longer held back the power of the Azure Dragon. Blood chi crashed and roared through his veins. Zhao Ritian was like a shooting star smashing toward him. Long Chen unleashed a punch, and Zhao Ritian was sent flying back at 10 times the speed. The earth exploded. People merely saw a flash, and then Long Chen also vanished. The earth continued to explode and collapse. People had never seen such a thing. This was no ordinary dirt. This was land that Zhao Ritian had transformed into metal through his manifestation. There were countless ores linked together underground. With the earth continuously exploding, large boulders were being thrown into the air. It was like the end of the world. One expert had just passed through the passageway to appear in this space when one of those flying boulders struck him. His divine item shattered and he exploded. Even his Yuan spirit was destroyed from the impact. Even as he died, he didn't know what had happened. The other experts were shocked to see that, and they ran over to the dragon corpse. There was an invisible barrier around it that allowed people to get close, but those flying rocks were prevented from damaging the corpse. They were blown to smithereens before they could get close. Only Mo Nian remained standing in the air, ignoring those flying boulders. Boom! A figure suddenly charged out of the ground. It was Zhao Ritian. His entire body was now covered in craters. His wings were completely deformed, as well as his head. One of his legs had been beaten into a fish hook, and the hook was bent in front of him. Zhao Ritian was furious, but there was now a trace of panic in his eyes. He had clearly suffered underground. He was flying out in order to escape his inferior position. However, he had barely flown out when another figure flew out. That figure was Long Chen, and he was even faster than Zhao Ritian. The current Long Chen scales had turned red. His blood chi seemed to have been ignited. Space was twisting wildly around him. Long Chen was now so fast that they could barely track him with their eyes. His leg whipped out, and Zhao Ritian blocked with both his arms. Boom! Zhao Ritian was then sent smashing into the ground once more. It was like a shooting star had crashed into a lake, and the earth unleashed a huge wave. This time, the sharp-sighted experts saw that Zhao Ritian's arms had been deformed, failing to block Long Chen's kick. Long Chen also managed to leave a deep footprint in Zhao Ritian's face. Heavens, what kind of power is this? Most of the people present were supreme experts but had been hidden by their sections. They only came out at this critical moment to search for their own lucky chances. In terms of combat power, they had to admit that they were inferior to those at the apex like Nangong Zuyu and Beitang Rushuang. However, they were only one level weaker. The reason that they were low-key was so that others wouldn't be on guard against them, making it easier for them to find their own opportunities. However, as experts, they had their own pride. They had thought that even against the likes of Long Chen or Feng Fei, they would still be able to take whatever treasures they could find and flee from them. This was why they had come here fearlessly. However, after witnessing Long Chen and Zhao Ritian's battle, those thoughts were extinguished. Every one of their movements possessed the power to destroy heaven and earth. Let alone escaping, these experts probably weren't even able to receive a single attack. The shockwaves from the battlefield might just be enough to wipe them out in an instant. Only now did they realize that they had overestimated themselves. The difference between them and Long Chen was too great. After smashing Zhao Ritian underground again, Long Chen shot after him. He seemed unstoppable. However, the earth suddenly rippled. A giant fist and arm shot out of the ground, smashing into Long Chen. Compared to this fist, Long Chen was as small as a mosquito. Giant spirit breaks the heavens. Zhao Ritian's furious howl came from underground, and brilliant multicolored light radiated out of the arm, blinding others. Zhao Ritian was finally using his most powerful techniques. You can't even break a hair. Long Chen snorted and didn't stop. The appearance of this metal fist didn't seem to affect him at all. His body was covered in red runes, and he unleashed a punch at the enormous metal fist. A huge explosion shook the land. The aftermath of this exchange shook everyone. The metal fist that was bigger than a mountain shattered into countless pieces. Not only was the fist shattered but the earth as well. Everyone clearly saw a metal giant that was beneath the ground break into multiple pieces. A piece that was thousands of meters long was half of its head. Those giant fragments tumbled through the air. A finger fell toward the dragon corpse and was knocked back by the barrier. One person's eyes lit up, and he took the risk of going outside the barrier, grabbing the finger. However, his expression quickly changed. He was unable to put it away. This one finger was too heavy for him to move. What good stuff! At this moment, Emo Nian also took action. Seeing a giant arm fragment flying over, he took out his bow. Divine light lit up as it struck the arm. The void rumbled. Using some unknown technique, Emo Nian managed to stop the arm's momentum and easily move it to his astral space. Damn, this is a kind of alloy formed from hundreds of immortal and divine metals. Emo Nian was delighted and quickly gathered up 7 large fragments. One of them was the largest piece, a piece of the head. Bastard, you dare to snatch my source metal? I'll exterminate your entire family, shouted Zhao Ritian, shocked upon seeing Emo Nian taking his giant spirit puppet's fragments. Idiot, do you see anyone paying attention to you? Emo Nian sneered and flew toward another fragment. However, before he could take it, it melted into the ground. Emo Nian was startled to see that and hastily went to grab another fragment, only for the rest to all melt away. This place was Zhao Ritian's domain. So petty. What's wrong with taking a few pieces of your rotten metal? Emo Nian curled his lips. Looking at the metal he had gathered in his astral space, he smiled. Those fragments were all treasures. In the distance, Feng Fei's heart pounded. She hadn't expected Long Chen's true power to be so great. Zhao Ritian's giant spirit puppet was made of countless immortal metals. It was incredibly tough and powerful as it was the core of his manifestation's power. Zhao Ritian's manifestation was no ordinary manifestation. All the immortal and divine metals within it had been gathered for him by the Zhao family. It made it look like Zhao Ritian was very rich, as if he had the ability to summon metals as he wished, But of everyone present, only Feng Fei knew how wrong that was. Every time Zhao Ritian fought, he was burning money. That was because he was exhausting the metals he had gathered. In order to keep up with that consumption, every time he went to a new place, he would gather the various metals in the ground. When he fought, he could transform the land into his manifestation, absorbing any ores for his own use. If there was enough, or he could keep up with the demand. But if the earth was barren, he would have to burn up his own stock. Using up his stock was a painful thing for Zhao Ritian, while his giant spirit puppet was essentially a condensation of all his stock. The reason he was able to turn the world into his manifestation was due to the metals he had gathered beforehand. The fragments of the giant spirit puppet that Yen had taken were incredibly precious to him, and the fact that they were taken drove him crazy. Absorbing the outside world's metal and turning it into his source metal was a time-consuming process that required constant attention from him. Although Feng Fei had known that Long Chen was very powerful, she had always felt that he wasn't a match for her. That was her judgment as an expert. She had never been wrong before, but the fact that Long Chen had shattered Zhao Ritian's giant spirit puppet made her feel like her judgment was no longer accurate. Perhaps she had to classify Long Chen as an expert on the same level as her. As for Long Chen, he seemed to be a wild dragon in human form. With a body of flesh and blood, he was crushing Zhao Ritian's million-metal body, completely suppressing him. Boom! Zhao Ritian's arms exploded. Long Chen was unstoppable. His power only continued to grow. Zhao Ritian, can you summon your puppet out again? Don't worry, I have an understanding of Long Chen. He looks strong, but it's a cover. If you summon a few more of those puppets, he definitely won't be able to endure. I look favorably upon you, so don't disappoint me. Encouraged Yen. This encouragement was clearly lacking any good intentions. All he wanted was to take more of Zhao Ritian's source metal. Other than Yen, no one else had gained anything. Now, quite a few people tensed up in secret, thinking of how they might be able to sneak in some metal for themselves. Every part of Zhao Ritian's puppet was a priceless treasure. Taking a single piece was invaluable. Don't hesitate. Listen to people's advice. Look at how badly you're being beaten. You don't seem much stronger than a dog like this. Hurry up and fight back. Live up to your name and summon your puppet, shouted Yen. At this time, Zhao Ritian was being continuously beaten back by Long Chen, unable to even retaliate. Every one of Long Chen's punches left a dent in his body. Zhao Ritian was shocked and infuriated. Long Chen's power seemed limitless. Even after all this fighting, there were no signs of him starting to grow tired. Instead, his power grew. In his vexed state, Yen's fanning of the flames made him feel like he would explode. Shut up. I don't need you to encourage me. Once I kill Long Chen, you're next, roared Zhao Ritian. The distraction resulted in Long Chen landing a foot on his chest, leaving another large dent in his body. Tch, and you call yourself Ritian? What an arrogant name, sneered Yen. Who can't Ritian? As long as you're a man, all you have to do is take off your pants and lay on your back. Do you think a badass name makes you amazing? With this name, I'm worried that you'll pass away today. Nangong Ziyu and Beiteng Rushuang reddened at how crass Yen was speaking. Feng Fei also glared at Yen icily. This was the first time anyone had dared to speak like this before her. Girl, what are you looking at? If you want my pure body, just give up. This body belongs to someone else, said Yen in reply to Feng Fei's glare, undaunted. Yen, you had best reserve yourself a bit. Don't force me to kill you, said Feng Fei icily. Me force you? Ha ha. What a great joke. Is there anyone in this world who dares to force the divine families to do anything? Isn't it always the divine families forcing others? I haven't even started settling the debt that the divine families owe the Mo family for harboring the ones who murdered our people, and you want me to reserve myself? The divine families really are interesting. Yen laughed arrogantly. Although the last sneak attack against the Mo family had been mostly targeting Long Chen, it was an insult toward the Mo family. In fact, perhaps if they had been targeting the Mo family, Yen wouldn't be so infuriated. But their only goal had been to force Long Chen out. The Mo family had actually been treated as an insignificant chess piece, and that was the greatest insult. Although Mo Nian hadn't mentioned that matter again, it didn't mean that he had forgotten about it. He was extremely vengeful. He was ready to avenge this matter when he had a chance. However, before he had even mentioned it, Feng Fei had further antagonized him, infuriating him. "That matter has nothing to do with me. Don't act wild around me," said Feng Fei coldly. "It has nothing to do with me?" As expected of the shameless divine families. You cut yourself off from responsibility just by saying it has nothing to do with you. When they attacked the Mo family and my brother chased the killers to the D family's territory, who was it that stopped my brother? My brother doesn't like fighting women, but you still forced him to fight. Let me tell you, when I fight, I don't see a difference between men and women. There are only dead or living enemies. If you don't like it, let's fight right now. We can see if I'll have mercy on you like Long Chen did, said Mo Nian. The space behind Mo Nian began to shudder as his battle intent rose, causing everyone else to jump. Mo Nian was actually challenging Feng Fei? In the distance, Long Chen sighed. Mo Nian really had a skillful mouth. In his words, the draw between himself and Feng Fei had somehow turned into him having mercy on her. Feng Fei was also enraged now. When had she ever required someone to have mercy on her? Since you want to stand up for Long Chen, come over and fight. Killing intent blazed within Feng Fei. She was prepared to kill Mo Nian. Mo Nian smiled and was about to speak when space shuddered as another figure arrived. Mo Nian, you think you can challenge Senior Feng Fei? Di Feng will handle you. Everyone was startled to see that the ancient family alliance's Di Feng had arrived as well. Ritian can be taken to be fuck the heavens. Di Feng had also arrived, and he seemed to have become very confident. Upon entering the fourth step of Nether Passage, his aura had changed. It felt foreign, ancient. The only thing that hadn't changed was the wildness deep within his eyes. He was like a wild beast who had been holding back for far too long and could finally bare his fangs. Mo Nian disdainfully said, Di Feng, I know you've merged with the Blood Emperor's heroic spirit. But even with the Blood Emperor's blessing, you are still nothing in front of me. When you sent people to attack the Mo family to draw Long Chen out, he didn't kill you because he was leaving you to me. As for why I didn't go kill you after coming out of seclusion, one reason was my own lack of time, but another reason was that I didn't want to kill you randomly. I wanted to let you see the extermination of the D family. But since you want to die so quickly, fine. Show me just what qualifications the Blood Emperor had back in the day to make my Mo family one of his followers. Mo Nian's bow appeared in his hand. The Mo family and the D family's grudge had been brewing for tens of thousands of years. Despite not wanting to kill Di Feng here, Mo Nian was still human and couldn't perfectly control his emotions. I hear that you've gained control of divine energy? I don't know which fallen god became your dad, but it just so happens that I also want to test your power. I can conveniently clean up the ancient family alliance's disgrace as well, said Di Feng. Killing intent rose between the two of them. The other experts were stunned. Although Di Feng was also considered a generation's genius, the strongest expert of the ancient family alliance's junior generation, he had fallen from the ranks of the supreme experts in other people's minds after his multiple defeats by Long Chen. As for Mo Nian, his standing in people's eyes had soared after fighting evenly against the corrupt paths Yiming. He was now classified amongst the strongest of all experts. That was why others didn't find it strange that Mo Nian would speak so coldly to Feng Fei and Zhao Ritian. He had the qualifications. For Di Feng to challenge Mo Nian at this time was very strange to them though. Had Di Feng truly obtained the blessing of the Blood Emperor as Mo Nian had said? His power had soared to such an extent? Their auras began to climb higher and higher. This would be a battle between a dragon and a tiger. Scram! This is my battlefield. Do you think you clowns can step onto it? Suddenly, the earth exploded. Blinding light filled the air, and sharp blades shot out in every direction. Those blades were metallic runes, and they tore through the air, covering up the sky. Mo Nian and Di Feng's expressions changed. The two of them were still in the midst of gathering their power and were suddenly interrupted by this attack before reaching their peak states. The two of them dashed behind the barrier of the dragon corpse, avoiding the metal runes. Those metal runes had formed a giant whirlpool surrounding Long Chen and Zhao Ritian. What terrifying power! Isn't this kind of power capable of tearing apart the very world? Exclaimed someone. Those metal fragments clashed and merged, causing the void to twist. They could see that the earth around the whirlpool was sinking. The world of the Dragon King was deforming. I'll let you live a bit longer. Once Long Chen is done beating his target, I'll slaughter you, said Emon Yen indifferently. That's what I was going to say, snorted Di Feng. The two of them turned their attention to the battlefield. This was an awe-inspiring battle to witness. As the countless runes raged through the air, the center was sluggish like mud due to the sheer number of metal runes. Their weight caused the earth to sink. Long Chen, to be buried within my million-metal whirlpool, you can rest content. Zhao Ritian suddenly appeared from within the whirlpool, sneering at Long Chen down below. As for Long Chen, his figure was completely drowned in the countless runes. The two of them were originally at the core of the whirlpool, but with Zhao Ritian's million-metal body, the whirlpool did not affect him, allowing him to escape easily while Long Chen was caught. If I did die to an idiot like you, I'd never be able to rest in peace. A little whirlpool thinks it can trap me? Long Chen's voice rang out from within the whirlpool. The rapidly spinning whirlpool suddenly began to slow down, as if some force was preventing its movements. The whirlpool began to shudder, and cracks appeared in the ground, spreading to the ends of this world. Heavens, will this world be destroyed? Some people grew afraid. The two of them were monsters. The world was breaking apart as if an invisible hand was smashing it. Zhao Ritian's expression changed. The destructive power of his million-metal whirlpool had never failed him. No one who had been sucked inside had ever come out alive. Zhao Ritian quickly formed hand seals as he pushed the whirlpool to spin harder. It staggered as if two powers were wrestling it. Long Chen used his own power to resist a power that a human body shouldn't be able to endure. Break! Boom! The whirlpool exploded, with the metal runes dissipating into specks of sand. It was like a rainbow had exploded and landed on the earth. It was a violent and beautiful sight. Amidst the flying sand was Long Chen. At this moment, it was vaguely possible to see a white dragon moving through his scales. The current Long Chen looked just like a dragon god. Damn, he's taken the spotlight from me again. It seems that today isn't a good day for me to fight, or I'll be relegated to an accompanying act. Emon Yen sighed. When did Long Chen learn such a flashy technique? Everyone was staring in shock at Long Chen. The dragon might pouring out of him was something that made all races submit. Within the multicolored sand, Long Chen appeared indomitable. He was both majestic and solitary, like a figure that had transcended all others. Long Chen clenched his fists. He was filled with excitement as he sensed the dragon blood power flowing through his body. The Dragon King Senior was wrong. The Azure Dragon Seal does not just possess a state for offense and defense. There is a third state where offense and defense are combined. It seems that even he did not possess a complete understanding of the origin of this Azure Dragon reverse scale. Just now, when he had been trapped within the whirlpool, Long Chen could only stay in his defensive state. But Zhao Ritian's technique was too powerful. It was supported by the power of the entire world. Even Long Chen had felt like he might be crushed. It was at that moment that he seemed to have heard a voice telling him to switch to offense. Long Chen hadn't quite dared to take that risk, but the instant he switched, the Azure Dragon Seal's rune completely transformed, allowing him to enter his current state. In his current state, he was in possession of his full offensive and defensive powers. He no longer had to switch between them. Furthermore, in this state, Long Chen felt like he had enough power to swallow the very heavens, a power that this world could not contain. Again! Space twisted, and Long Chen appeared in front of Zhao Ritian in an instant. Zhao Ritian howled and formed hand seals once again. The scattered sand rapidly flowed toward him, forming a giant shield. Although it was condensed in just an instant, it looked no different from solid metal. It gave off extremely heavy air. However, this giant shield shattered on contact with Long Chen's fist. The current Long Chen had reached an unimaginable level. At that moment, Mo Nian saw his chance. He directly flew over to the largest fragment of the shield. However, the fragments quickly sank into the ground and vanished. Fuck! Mo Nian was enraged. This petty Zhao Ritian was now on guard against him. The distraction of having to regather his fragments allowed Long Chen to land a kick right on his crotch. With an explosive sound, Zhao Ritian was split in two. Everyone let out a startled cry, thinking that Zhao Ritian had died. However, the two halves of Zhao Ritian merged once more. It really is an undying body. If he didn't die even like this, then he had truly transcended the limits of a human. He was an incomprehensible existence. Long Chen seemed to have expected this and was already following up with a palm. Zhao Ritian raised his arm, only for it to shatter. Long Chen's palm struck Zhao Ritian in the face, taking his head off his body and leaving a headless corpse. However, even in that state, Zhao Ritian didn't die. His aura didn't change. Hence, everyone felt a chill. In front of an undying expert, they felt profoundly helpless and afraid. How were you supposed to defeat such an opponent? On the other hand, even against such a terrifying opponent, Long Chen was beating him like a lump of dough. No matter how Zhao Ritian blocked, his body ended up deformed. This was a true battle of the peak. For a moment, everyone forgot about the matter of searching for the treasures in this place. Everyone couldn't help thinking a certain thought: the tough as iron Zhao Ritian versus the iron-beating Long Chen. Zhao Ritian, are you still trying to exhaust my energy? You really are conceited. You think that by absorbing the energy of the dragon nest, you have access to limitless power, so your advantage will grow as time passes? Do you think you'll be able to kill me once I weaken? You're wrong. I am not a celestial, and don't need the power of the heavenly Daos. I can crush you without extracting energy from the world. Since you refuse to bring out your full power, I suppose it's up to me. I'll show you just how laughable this strategy of yours is. Long Chen suddenly summoned the 5-star battle armor. A pillar of blood chi soared into the sky. Long Chen's blood chi was like lava, igniting the sky. His aura transformed once more. What? Even now, this isn't their full power? The various experts that had gathered here were stunned. Long Chen's body also ignited, and a blood-colored flame appeared around him. This was not a manifestation but a true flame. Before this, Long Chen had only summoned his divine ring and the power of his astral spaces. He hadn't summoned the 5-star battle armor. That was because the Dragon King had used his own essence blood to nourish the Azure Dragon essence blood, helping Long Chen restore its lost power. However, Long Chen's essence blood still had the Dragon King's power remaining within it, which needed to be slowly forced out. Because of it, Long Chen had been using himself as a furnace to purify his Azure Dragon essence blood. The purer his Azure Dragon essence blood was, the stronger he was. This was similar to refining pills. He was doing it bit by bit through battle, purifying the Azure Dragon essence blood from the Dragon King's influence. If he purified it in an instant, his body wouldn't be able to endure the sudden explosion of power, and he would explode. But through this long battle, he had gradually grown accustomed to it and no longer needed to hold back. The Azure Dragon essence blood was fully unleashed, with all the impurities wiped out. Long Chen was further angered by Zhao Ritian because the latter still refused to use his full power. He was clearly waiting for Long Chen to run out of energy before using one of his trump cards to kill him, or perhaps to capture him alive. That was definitely a provocation to him. It just so happened that Long Chen had reached the final step and no longer needed to hold back any longer. The void shook and the earth split open, looking like the apocalypse. Long Chen's blood chi unleashed unprecedented dragon might with the 5-star battle armor. As a result, the mountains collapsed. Those metal mountains of Zhao Ritian's manifestation were unable to bear Long Chen's aura. Long Chen's blood chi is shattering Zhao Ritian's heavenly Dao manifestation. Everyone watched as Long Chen's blood chi wrecked Zhao Ritian's manifestation. A blood-colored aura crushed the metal mountains. The world was now split between Zhao Ritian's metal domain and Long Chen's bloody aura. Long Chen pressed down the air in front of him, causing the void to crack. In an instant, he appeared in front of Zhao Ritian like an eagle diving down on a rabbit. The world is distorting. Startled cries rang out. The void was rippling wherever Long Chen passed, and the others were no longer able to see Long Chen clearly. Even his aura was too distorted for them to sense precisely. Boom. Besides, he was so fast that they barely saw him move before he arrived in front of Zhao Ritian. After that, Zhao Ritian raised his arms to block, only to get smashed into the ground by Long Chen's foot. A huge wave exploded out of the ground. Just like that, Long Chen pushed Zhao Ritian through the earth, crashing through the metal mountains. Those metal mountains were blown to smithereens, but they quickly grew back as if they were alive. Just like Zhao Ritian's body, they could not be broken. But even as they restored themselves, they crumbled once more. Suddenly, the earth exploded, and Zhao Ritian was kicked into the sky. Long Chen appeared next to him in an instant and slammed his foot down. Another explosive sound rang out. Zhao Ritian himself was blown to smithereens. What? Zhao Ritian was killed? That can't be true. Everyone stared, dumbfounded. Zhao Ritian had been blasted to smithereens. He could not be more dead, but people still didn't dare to believe it. No, he's not dead. The tiny pieces of Zhao Ritian merged into the earth and vanished, but his manifestation didn't fade away. Two explosive sounds rang out as Long Chen reached into the ground with his hands. Two dragon claw auras had appeared, tearing into the earth. Rise! The earth instantly swelled, causing everyone to jump. What is he doing? Does he want to flip heaven and earth? In front of everyone's shocked gazes, Long Chen pulled the flattened earth into the sky. What kind of power is this? People's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Is it the legendary, hate the heavens for not having a handle, hate the earth for not having a hilt? When a person reaches a level of power that there is no longer a weapon that can match their might, they wish to use heaven and earth as their weapons, heavens. Just at that moment, Long Chen lifted a giant chunk of earth until it was perpendicular to the land. Everyone felt a chill. If that giant mass fell on them, would they survive? Long Chen, we didn't do anything to you dash. Just as they were worried, Long Chen smashed apart the chunk of earth. There was nowhere for them to run. They could only hide beside the dragon corpse as the very earth fell upon them. Boom! The giant mass of earth smashed into the barrier with a heaven-shaking explosion. This land, which was made of Zhao Ritian's metal mountain manifestation, was smashed apart like tofu landing on a rock. However, the barrier wasn't shaken at all. Zhao Ritian's figure appeared within the smashed-apart earth. He coughed up a mouthful of golden blood. The earth was his foundation and gave him limitless power. Even in this long beating, he hadn't suffered any real injuries. It was only now that the source of his power, the earth, had been smashed into the dragon barrier and shattered apart that he was injured. As for his golden blood, it had just appeared when a figure shot over and snatched it. This is some good stuff. Zhao Ritian, you're finally willing to part with something. Emo Nian put away the golden blood with a petty laugh. Although Emo Nian wasn't a forging master, the heaven-swallowing sun-hunting Bao told him that this essence blood was useful. As soon as he had been told this, he shot into action. Furthermore, as soon as he gave it to the heaven-swallowing sun-hunting Bao, he clearly felt it strengthen. In Emo Nian's eyes, Zhao Ritian's entire body was a limitless treasure trove. Bastard, I'll kill you! Zhao Ritian roared furiously. He had finally been injured and lost his source essence blood. That was an unprecedented humiliation for him. Die! Zhao Ritian's body suddenly blazed with light. Golden lines appeared beneath his skin, looking like flowing blood. The golden blood condensed in his dantian. After that, golden sand began to flow toward Zhao Ritian from throughout heaven and earth. He became like a blazing sun. Zhao Ritian, is this worth it? Don't forget, we have more important matters, warned Feng Fei. Shut up. This is my matter. Do I need outsiders to interject? Roared Zhao Ritian. Zhao Ritian was no longer visible within the golden light. The others could only see blinding divine light from his direction. Rumbling rang out from him. It was unknown what he was doing, but his aura was growing more and more frightening. Long Chen simply stood there, watching. He sneered, "You should have done this earlier. Why did you have to get slapped and beaten so much before doing this? Why don't you tell me whether or not you think you're a loser?" While Zhao Ritian had looked to be getting beaten up before, he hadn't actually been at a disadvantage. He had been trying to use his domain's power to exhaust Long Chen. Within his domain, Long Chen didn't have access to any further energy to support himself. As for the power of his dragon blood, it couldn't be limitless. Sooner or later, he would weaken. Fortunately, Long Chen had the 9-star Hegemon body art and sharp senses toward a person's strengths and weaknesses. This little strategy was unable to escape his eyes. Zhao Ritian's goal wasn't to beat Long Chen but to kill him, or maybe even crush him badly in front of everyone and make him beg for death. Perhaps that was the result of his twisted heart. Just beating someone normally was unable to satisfy his depraved desires. Having fully refined the Azure Dragon Essence blood, Long Chen was in his peak state, but he could not keep it up forever. He had to finish this decisive battle with Zhao Ritian quickly. In front of Zhao Ritian, whose aura was growing more and more monstrous, Long Chen didn't feel the slightest fear. Instead, he felt more and more of a desire to fight. Boom! The divine light exploded. Zhao Ritian's figure reappeared in the sky, but his current state caused Emon Yen and the others' jaws to drop. Zhao Ritian's body was no longer flowing with golden blood but a rainbow-colored fluid. It condensed below his dantian. There was a root image there that formed a strange cycle. This is the merger of spirit blood and spirit root? The spirit root is the root of life. It determines a person's talent and divine abilities. How can it be merged with the spirit blood? The spirit root was a ball of root chi located below the dantian. It was the innate foundation of a cultivator, something that was formed and activated while they were still in the womb. It was the talent that awakened the earliest. It was like a seed that would start germinating immediately. It decided what kind of plant would grow from it. A towering tree had to have an appropriate seed. A bean sprout couldn't be trained into a tree that could reach the heavens. When large sects were recruiting, the main thing that they looked at was the spirit root. However, those who were able to become Empyreans had to have at least violet gold grade spirit roots. By that level, the spirit root had reached a limit, so people were competing in spirit blood. The spirit root was the spirit root, and the spirit blood was the spirit blood. There was little in common between them. Now that Zhao Ritian was using his spirit blood to activate his spirit root and unleash unprecedented power, everyone was dumbfounded. This toppled their understanding of cultivation. We can't do this, but that doesn't mean that he can't. Zhao Ritian came with Feng Fei, and he doesn't talk to her courteously. They're clearly experts on the same level, so he is also a sovereign sprout. I have heard that all sovereign sprouts have a spirit bone. It was one of the requirements to become a sovereign. As for us, we have no spirit bone, so we can't judge them according to our standards, sighed one person. Looking at Zhao Ritian in the sky, they felt a sense of profound despair. To be born in the same generation as such a figure was a kind of sorrow. There was no hope as they could only be suppressed. A sovereign sprout, a sprout that could grow into a sovereign. There was a difference right from the start between them. Whatever they did, they couldn't make up for that gap. The void flickered as if the world was breathing along with Zhao Ritian. He no longer needed his manifestation. In this state, he was the automatic ruler of the world. Die! Zhao Ritian and Long Chen attacked at the same time. One blazed with multicolored divine light, while the other had a blood dragon coiling around him. They were like two shooting stars smashing into each other. The two of them began to exchange a wild howling torrent of blows. Every time their fists or feet met, it would cause the world to shake. Even if I don't obtain anything, just being able to witness this battle makes it worth it. Someone clenched their fists. He had previously been dispirited because he had wished to compete with experts on this level. However, upon seeing the difference and accepting his position as a spectator, he felt a kind of delight. Two peak powers were colliding, two unbeatable wills were clashing. He was bearing witness to a battle of peak experts. This alone was beneficial to him. Boom. Suddenly, with one final explosion, it was like a star had exploded. A rain of divine light fell from the sky, and the two of them retreated at the same time. They stared at each other. Long Chen had an azure dragon coiling around him like a protector. It made him appear even more attractive. The main thing though was that he was facing a twisted Zhao Ritian who had transformed into a monster. That naturally made Long Chen look better in comparison. Long Chen is starting to pant. He has reached his limit. If this continues, his power will start to flag. That's normal. After all, he's human and not even an Empyrean. It was unbelievable that he was only starting to reach his limit after such a long battle on this level. After all, a person's power couldn't be limitless. You're out of energy, huh? Long Chen, you're definitely dead. Zhao Ritian glared at Long Chen, his eyes violet red. They were like the eyes of a beast, sinister and fierce. Even his voice seemed like a growl. He hated Long Chen. He hated Long Chen for forcing him into this state. He hated Long Chen for making him lose some of his source essence. Even if he killed Long Chen, it would take him a long time to recover from this. Long Chen smiled and lightly said, "My dragon blood is starting to reach its limit. But what about you? Idiot, my spirit blood and spirit root have merged, not just giving a boost to my power, but also creating a cycle that automatically absorbs the world's energy for myself. What are you supposed to use to compete with me?" Sneered Zhao Ritian, once more shooting at Long Chen. They began a crazy exchange once more. Zhao Ritian's speech stunned people. If that really was the case, then wasn't Long Chen's defeat set in stone? Zhao Ritian didn't even need his manifestation. His manifestation's power was locked within him, allowing him to enter this merged state. Or perhaps this should be considered a kind of manifestation that was impossible for the spectators to comprehend. Zhao Ritian was constantly absorbing the power of the heavenly Daos to support himself, making up for the energy he was using, while Long Chen's dragon blood energy was being exhausted bit by bit. In comparison, Long Chen is stronger, said someone suddenly. Others nodded, even those who were enemies with Long Chen. When they had to compare, Long Chen was the real terrifying one. If he was an Empyrean with the approval of the heavens, he wouldn't be at such a disadvantage. You're the idiot. Even if you are absorbing the energy of heaven and earth, so what? Your output is far greater. There's no way it's balanced. It's like repeatedly throwing a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. Who are you trying to dupe? I'll tear off your mask today. Long Chen's sneer rang out as he continued to fight. Zhao Ritian's body was now so tough that he couldn't break it, but his Azure Dragon battle armor was just as tough. Every time they exchanged blows, there was a metallic ringing, and sparks flew like fireworks. Neither of them ceded an inch. Everyone could see that Long Chen was the main attacker. Zhao Ritian was only able to occasionally counterattack. There were many times that Long Chen had managed to strike parts of Zhao Ritian's body that would have been fatal in an ordinary person, but Zhao Ritian's body was too tough. When it came to skill in fighting barehanded, Zhao Ritian wasn't on the same level as Long Chen. It was simply that his body had no weak points. Long Chen had tried hitting Zhao Ritian everywhere, but he had not found any weaknesses. He hadn't even managed to injure him. After that, Long Chen landed a kick on Zhao Ritian's abdomen and then smashed his elbow into Zhao Ritian's nose, making him flip back. However, this exchange in particular caused everyone to let out a startled cry. This time, Zhao Ritian's nose had cracked. Long Chen's right. Zhao Ritian has also reached his limit. People were shocked at Long Chen's sharp vision. It was the first time that Zhao Ritian was damaged since he had entered this state. You've reached your limit, right? Let's see how you will continue acting arrogant. Long Chen continued to attack, once more landing a punch on Zhao Ritian's face. The cracks on his nose had just healed, so Zhao Ritian hastily raised his arms to block. However, Long Chen's punch was a feint. He grabbed Zhao Ritian's arms and smashed his right knee into his face. This attack was solidly received. Zhao Ritian flew back, even more cracks spreading throughout his head as if it might explode. Zhao Ritian's in danger. Although that was what someone said, they all saw that Long Chen was sweating and panting. He had to have reached his limit as well. Everyone tensed up. This world-shaking battle might be reaching its end. The victor and loser would quickly be revealed. Even if I have reached my limit, killing you isn't a problem, roared Zhao Ritian. Boom. The distraction of shouting resulted in Long Chen landing a kick on his dantian. The place where his spirit root had manifested rumbled. Zhao Ritian was sent flying. However, just at that moment, the scales on Long Chen's foot split apart. Blood dripped down. I've used up too much of the dragon blood's power. I can't maintain the Azure dragon battle armor much longer. Long Chen's heart shook. His defensive power had just dropped. Without it, fighting with a body of flesh against a body of metal should be difficult. Haha, I was waiting for this moment. You're just a normal person. Even if you have dragon blood, you're just borrowing its power. Without it, you're still trash. That Zhao Ritian laughed, taking the initiative to strike. Zhao Ritian had taken the initiative to attack this time. Although his aura was also no longer at his towering peak, it was still enough to make others shiver in fear. Even when he was spent, he still gave all the experts here a chill. Even a fangless tiger could still easily slaughter a rabbit. That was the difference between them. I'm just a normal mortal? You make it sound like you're already an immortal. You look like a human, but you don't know how to talk like a regular human, said Long Chen. Even in his weakened state, he continued to fight without hesitation. They repeatedly exchanged blows. Now, every time they clashed, blood would fly out of Long Chen's fists. As for Zhao Ritian, his fists would crack with every clash. Some fragments of his body even fell. Despite both of them being arrows at the end of their flight, their undefeatable wills had not changed. They were both confident that they could beat the other. People sighed. It was no wonder their seniors always said that experts were called experts due to their undefeatable wills, their firm beliefs, and their unyielding spirits. Those were the foundations of an expert. They were invisible normally, but during times of adversity, they always appeared. To be able to remain firm even in the face of such a terrifying opponent was the crux of an expert. If the slightest fear appeared, if the slightest panic or messy emotion manifested, it would lead to instant defeat. This kind of will couldn't be taught or inherited. It could only be tempered through countless life and death battles. By beating one frightening opponent after another, this will was gradually trained. Both friend and foe felt profound admiration for Long Chen at this moment. That was because compared to Zhao Ritian, their innate situations were incredibly different. Despite that, Long Chen remained confident in himself. That was the confidence built up through his experiences, climbing from a small secular empire in the eastern wasteland to the peak of the cultivation world. Sovereign sprouts like Zhao Ritian and Feng Fei who were born that way were envied, but when it came to Long Chen, they couldn't be jealous of him. Someone with no backer or talent had reached this level due to risking his life over and over again. Let's see how much longer you can last, roared Zhao Ritian. It should be no problem continuing until the 6th month of next year, said Long Chen lightly. Bullshit. Pow. This distraction resulted in Long Chen successfully landing a slap on Zhao Ritian's face. With his power having fallen, this slap no longer contained the threat it had possessed in the beginning, but it was still as humiliating as ever. Despicable fellow, you only have this little bit of ability. You only know how to attack while others are off guard. You're practically worse than a beast, cursed Zhao Ritian. When it comes to spouting bullshit, how am I inferior to you at all? Raged Long Chen. Beitang Rushuang, who had been focused with rapt attention, instantly lost her composure and laughed. Even Nangong Ziyu couldn't help smiling. She sighed, how is Long Chen still in the mood to be so glib? Zhao Ritian sinisterly sneered, you're covered in blood, and your power is running out faster than mine. You're definitely dead tonight. All you can do is talk. Just watch as your blood chi runs out bit by bit, bringing you ever closer to death. Are you angry that you can't do anything about it? Do you want to bite me? Feng Fei couldn't help but frown. Zhao Ritian was trying to wage mental warfare on Long Chen, provoking him into making rash decisions. That meant that Zhao Ritian's situation was truly dangerous. Bite you? I don't like eating shit. Don't view others like yourself, okay? Retorted Long Chen. Mo Nian clenched his bow. He was preparing to save Long Chen if it came to it, but Long Chen's sharp words made him prostrate himself toward him in admiration. No wonder this little fellow was liked by so many girls. The skill of his mouth was not inferior to his fists at all. Mo Nian was circulating his divine energy inside of him, ready to fight at any moment. He felt that Zhao Ritian's power was extremely shocking. He was truly worthy of being one of the divine family's sovereign sprouts. It looked as if either one of them could lose at any moment. Life and death could be decided in an instant. You fuck dash. Zhao Ritian's cursing was cut off by another slap in the face. How shameless. Unable to beat someone, you curse them? Is this the style of the divine families? Long Chen suddenly changed his fighting style. His figure flickered, and he began to repeatedly slap Zhao Ritian in the face. Zhao Ritian furiously clawed at him, but Long Chen slipped through his attacks easily, while continuing to slap him. Zhao Ritian attacked dozens of times and was slapped dozens of times. Not one slap missed. The most shocking thing was how easily Long Chen dodged. His movements were a wonder to behold, and he didn't repeat the same slap twice. This technique is probably an unprecedented divine technique that can never be replicated. Even if a sovereign is born, they would have to concede defeat in this regard, praised Beitang Rushuang. Although Long Chen was always sloppy and improper, his face-slapping divine art had reached a level of perfection. No one could stop it. The world-shaking battle had now transformed into a rogue bullying someone. The sudden change was stunning and difficult for them to believe. Who said you could be arrogant? Pow. Who said you could be domineering? Pow. Who said you could not wear a hat? Long Chen punctuated his scolding with a slap every time. It didn't matter whether Zhao Ritian tried to dodge, block, or attack, he could not avoid being slapped. Zhao Ritian roared furiously but was unable to catch Long Chen. He felt like he might explode from fury. Your source is going to be burned up by your rage. At this moment, Feng Fei spoke up. Zhao Ritian suddenly calmed down. It was like a bucket of ice water had been poured over his rage. Nangong Ziyu and the others immediately understood that they were at the final stage. Both of them were competing with whatever bit of energy they still had left. In this exhausted state, it was all too easy for stray emotions to affect them. Their movements would grow sluggish, and they would make errors of judgment. Any emotions, rage or fear, joy or sorrow, could badly affect someone in an exhausted state. Anger, fear, and sorrow in particular could use up a huge amount of energy without a person being aware. Zhao Ritian had been trying to stimulate Long Chen's fear to make him quickly use up his remaining energy. The result, though, was that he instead had his anger provoked by Long Chen. His little mental tricks had ended up being a reminder to Long Chen, causing him to switch to this different battle style. In his rage, Zhao Ritian had used up a great deal of energy rapidly. If it hadn't been for Feng Fei's quick warning, he would have used up all his energy. Zhao Ritian suddenly retreated, wrapping his arms around his head and coiling up. Long Chen didn't give him a chance to breathe. He chased after him, pummeling him. You talked big, but in the end, you needed a woman to warn you. Has your head become metal as well? No wonder you don't know how to talk like a person, sneered Long Chen. This entire fight, they had been competing with each other. For Feng Fei to have no choice but to speak up could already be considered assistance. If Zhao Ritian had been in an absolutely inferior position, with Feng Fei's pride, she wouldn't have said anything. By calling her just a woman, Long Chen had pulled her into his insult as well. Having experienced Feng Fei's constant arrogance, Long Chen was extremely disdainful of this action of hers. Zhao Ritian's expression changed. For Feng Fei to help him was announcing that he was inferior to Long Chen. Shut up! Zhao Ritian howled. He waved his hand in the air, and a bright golden rod appeared in his hand. He smashed it at Long Chen, leaving a silver river to spread in the void wherever it passed. Long Chen's heart shook. The instant that rod appeared, warning bells rang in his head. That was something that could kill him. Hence, He was retreating before Zhao Ritian even swung the rod. However, a river of stars followed this rod when it was swung, leaving Long Chen with nowhere to run. He was sent flying. Even without being struck by the actual rod, Long Chen's scales shattered. Blood dripped down his body, turning him into a blood man. With one attack, he was severely injured. Everyone was shocked. What kind of weapon was this? With his million-metal body, what kind of divine item would Zhao Ritian use? A weapon qualified to be used by him definitely had to be a terrifying one. The rod in Zhao Ritian's hand blazed with divine light. The space around it collapsed, unable to contain it. Long Chen, I am a sovereign sprout, while you are just a mortal man. But you actually forced me to use the heaven-suppressing dragon coiling rod. Do you know how many deaths you deserve? Tell me, how should I kill you? Zhao Ritian glared at Long Chen, his eyes full of killing intent. Long Chen looked at himself. His dragon scales had vanished. He had used up all his dragon blood energy and was now temporarily unable to summon the Azure dragon battle armor. However, he didn't seem dejected. Instead, he had a faint smile as he looked at Zhao Ritian. You're still such an idiot. This question sounds so laughable that I can't even answer. If I did, it would make me feel like I'm as weak as you. If it wasn't for Feng Fei warning you, you'd be so exhausted right now that you wouldn't even be able to use this rod's power, yet you still don't feel embarrassed to talk so arrogantly? As expected of a metal face. Do you know what it means to feel shame? Do you know, on a fundamental basis, you've already lost? For you to still be so arrogant, I really don't know where it comes from. If I were you, I'd have long since killed myself out of shame. Me lose? What nonsense. No one in this world can beat me. Today, I'll show you this world's strongest divine item, the power of the heaven-suppressing dragon coiling rod. Zhao Ritian refused to accept the reality of Long Chen's words. Every one of them was like an arrow piercing his heart. He furiously smashed the heaven-suppressing dragon coiling rod down. Long Chen snorted, hesitating between taking out the heaven-flipping seal or the demon moon furnace. However, just at that moment, the land beneath the dragon altar exploded. An evil aura burst out like the gates of hell had been opened. A rod that should be used for firewood also dares to be arrogant? A sinister, bloodthirsty, and evil voice resounded through the air. A black saber flew out of the ground. The current evil moon turned this world into a dark abyss. The air of death hung in the atmosphere. Long Chen grabbed Evil Moon and smiled. You finally came out. I left the best opportunity to you, so it would have been a shame if you didn't make it in time. Ha! If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't even be able to fight that firewood. It's finally my time to show off. Kill him. Evil Moon was even more excited than Long Chen. It seemed that it could not wait a second longer. The heaven-suppressing dragon coiling rod finished accumulating power and smashed down. Long Chen swung Evil Moon. A black crescent moon tore through the laws of space and time. The very world was cut in two and displaced. This was an attack that didn't even seem to come from this world. It was something that passed through the past, present, and future. It was an attack that thirsted to shatter the very stars. Boom! A heaven-shaking explosion blasted through the earth. A mushroom cloud erupted into the sky. The stars shook as if they might fall. This was a clash of two peak divine weapons. The fabric of this world began to fall apart. A wild tempest unfurled, and wind blades cut giant cracks into the void. The experts behind the barrier turned pale as the wind blades smashed into it. The barrier rumbled and cracked. Fortunately, the barrier managed to endure. Looking back at the center of the battlefield, they saw a bloody Long Chen with the sinister Evil Moon resting on his shoulder. Despite being soaked in blood with his robes broken down, he continued to exude the air of a peerless hero. In front of him was Zhao Ritian. His arms were gone along with half of his body. He had half his head remaining with only one eye. That one eye was filled with shock and disbelief. He was staring at Long Chen, unable to believe it. It wasn't just him who was shocked. In that instant, the exhausted Long Chen had suddenly unleashed unimaginable power. His aura had instantly skyrocketed. You were grinding down my energy to expose all my trump cards and kill me. But you didn't know that the energy that you were exhausting was just the energy of my dragon blood. I can't summon my dragon battle armor with my dragon blood energy exhausted, but I still have quite a bit of my spiritual yuan. Although it's not as powerful as my dragon blood energy, it's enough to kill you. Long Chen smiled strangely at Zhao Ritian. His body suddenly flickered, and he transformed into a bolt of lightning, hacking Evil Moon down on Zhao Ritian. Zhao Ritian was shocked and finally felt a bit afraid. He felt the threat of death approaching. Zhao Ritian's arms grew back and he formed quick hand seals. As a result, the distant earth exploded, and the heaven-suppressing dragon coiling rod that had been sent flying shot back. Boom! The heaven-suppressing dragon coiling rod was sent flying once more, transforming into a streak of light that pierced through the earth, leaving a bottomless hole. Zhao Ritian wanted to retreat, but Long Chen's attack wasn't stopped by his heaven-suppressing dragon coiling rod. Evil Moon continued to strike him and blast his body to bits. Long Chen, I have an undying body. You can't kill me. Zhao Ritian's voice resounded through the air. There is no such thing as an undying person in this world, especially not someone who likes to court death like you. Long Chen formed new hand seals, and sacred chanting resounded throughout heaven and earth. It was like gods were murmuring. Flame runes condensed into flame chains and pillars that sealed this space. Heaven-trapping flame prison, seal the heavens, lock the earth. With a final shout, the flame prison condensed. As the sacred chanting continued, the flame runes of the prison flickered. They began to shrink. At this moment, it was possible to see countless tiny metal runes trying to charge out of the spaces between the chains. However, they were blocked by some invisible energy. The heaven-suppressing dragon coiling rod suddenly shot back, but it was sent flying by Evil Moon again. The heaven-trapping flame prison continued to shrink. The metal runes were trapped inside, unable to escape. Zhao Ritian's body was quickly forced to appear. He struck the flame prison repeatedly, but no matter what he did, he could only cause some banging sounds. He was unable to break free. Zhao Ritian was finally afraid. He understood now that as he had been scheming against Long Chen had been scheming against him in turn. He had wanted to exhaust Long Chen so that Long Chen wouldn't have the energy to run. But Long Chen had been thinking the same thing. Under normal circumstances, this flame prison would be unable to trap Zhao Ritian. Now though, his energy had been thoroughly exhausted, and the chains of this prison were unbreakable. He kept calling his divine weapon to save him, but it was always knocked away by Evil Moon. Furthermore, after being slashed multiple times, cuts had appeared in the heaven-suppressing dragon coiling rod. If that continued, it might break. The heaven-suppressing dragon coiling rod was a supreme treasure that was tough and heavy. He had never dreamed that Long Chen would possess a weapon that could suppress it. The flame prison continued to shrink. The pressure inside of it grew as it shrank, and Zhao Ritian was horrified to find that his body was starting to burn. What kind of flames are these? Howled Zhao Ritian. These flames were actually capable of igniting immortal metal. Although he claimed to possess an undying body, that was under the condition that his source was not extinguished. If he was out of energy, his core would be exposed, and then he could be killed. Flames that can burn you to death, answered Long Chen lightly. Huolinger's flame energy had reached a shocking level. Through constantly refining pills, she had also gained control over this new energy. Even Zhao Ritian's million metal body could be burned alive. The prison shrank until it was just 300 meters wide. Zhao Ritian was under terrifying pressure, and he couldn't help screaming in pain. Zhao Ritian has lost, and absolutely completely at that. A sovereign sprout actually lost to Long Chen. It really is unimaginable, sighed someone. When Zhao Ritian was first trapped, they had been waiting to see if he could reverse the tides. However, even after all this time, all that happened was that Zhao Ritian's aura weakened, while the flame prison grew stronger. It seemed that Zhao Ritian no longer possessed the power to turn things around. A sovereign sprout, someone who had the possibility of becoming a sovereign, an unrivaled existence, had been beaten. This result was unbelievable. Long Chen, you can stop. You've won. Feng Fei suddenly spoke up, sighing. She also hadn't expected this result. Stop? Are you joking? Long Chen turned to look at Feng Fei disdainfully. You were the ones acting like all the treasures of this world belonged to you. Did you think about stopping? I was the one who got here first, and I didn't even go for the 4 divine bones, but this idiot refused to let things be. If the result was the opposite and I was the one who was trapped, would you tell him to stop? If not, then please shut your mouth. Those who want to kill me have to be prepared to be killed by me. Feng Fei coldly said, Long Chen, you had best think this through. You are publicly going against the divine families. Haha. Long Chen laughed crazily. How funny. The divine families are right to kill others, but resistance is called going against the divine families? The brains of the divine families are truly special. Don't threaten me. I don't know how many threats I've heard, but have I ever lowered my head? I do not seek ascension or comprehending the heavenly Taos. All I seek is to live with dignity. All I have is a group of brothers who are just as unafraid of death as I am. We are all determined to fight with our lives at stake if anyone tries to stop us. If you want to save him, then come. Show me whether my life is tougher, or if the life of 2 sovereign sprouts is tougher. Long Chen was decisive, not leaving the slightest room for negotiation. If Long Chen killed one of the divine family's sovereign sprouts, that would be a huge matter. But it seemed that Long Chen really was capable of doing such a thing. Nangong Ziyu and Beiteng Rushuang exchanged a look, seeing each other's worry. Long Chen would not listen to their advice. What he had decided on, no one could change. If Long Chen did kill Zhao Ritian, the divine families would pay any price to kill him. You should go advise your brother. Beiteng Rushuang nudged Mo Nian. Advise? Are you joking? Zhao Ritian should be killed. As for the consequences, who cares? What would be the point of risking our lives cultivating if we have to shackle ourselves for fear of consequences? The worst-case scenario is we die. When we reincarnate, we can continue fighting against the world. Mo Nian shook his head. You really are a pair of stubborn mules, said Beiteng Rushuang. Why else would we be life and death brothers? Laughed Mo Nian. Mo Nian had barely finished speaking when he suddenly unleashed an arrow containing the power he had been accumulating this entire time. An arrow streaked through the air at Feng Fei because she had also just moved. An arrow shot out like lightning, reaching Feng Fei at almost the same time it left the string. A huge explosion of divine energy blocked Feng Fei. If you dare to interfere, don't blame me for not caring about your gender. Mo Nian appeared in the sky, staring coldly at Feng Fei. Feng Fei was finally unable to remain seated. She wanted to save Zhao Ritian because she couldn't allow him to die. That meant that Zhao Ritian had truly reached his end. Mo Nian pulled back his bowstring. A giant whirlpool appeared behind him, filled with divine energy. His divine energy fluctuations were even more intense than those of a divine son or divine daughter. In the blink of an eye, Mo Nian entered his peak state. What powerful divine energy! It actually pulled in the heavenly Taos. Beiteng Rushuang was startled. As a fellow Bao expert, she saw that he walked a different path from her, but his power was truly great. Feng Fei coldly snorted, If I want to interfere, you won't be able to stop me. I hope you don't misjudge yourself. What do you mean by misjudge myself? All I know is that if you try to interfere, I'll kill you. Suddenly, a giant figure appeared in the whirlpool behind Mo Nian. It was identical to him and also held a bow. However, this bow was so huge that it exceeded the realms of heaven and earth. There was a single arrow on it, an arrow reflecting the sun, moon, and stars. The world turned calm, as if waiting to be destroyed. Feng Fei's expression changed. She had underestimated Mo Nian. With him having made his move first, he truly possessed the ability to kill her. Not everyone possessed the ability to instantly enter their peak state like Long Chen. Even Feng Fei was incapable of that. Most experts required at least 3 attacks to warm up before unleashing their peak power. With no warm-up, their own body wouldn't be able to endure the sudden leap in power. Feng Fei had been focused on taking the divine bones. Moreover, she hadn't expected Zhao Ritian to lose, and she had especially not thought that he would end up in a state to be killed. She hadn't made any preparations to fight as a result, while Nian was well aware of Long Chen's character and knew that he would try to not just defeat Zhao Ritian, but kill him. The reason Long Chen had been waiting for Nian was to prevent Zhao Ritian from running and also to stop Feng Fei from interfering. Everything was within their calculations. However, Zhao Ritian's power had truly been terrifying. Despite that, Long Chen had still suppressed him. That made Nian feel competitive. If at this time he was unable to block Feng Fei, he wouldn't have the face to see Long Chen again. Everyone's expressions changed and they retreated. Just looking at Nian's arrow made them feel like their souls would dissipate. If this attack was unleashed, it was unknown what kind of consequences it would have. Nian, you dare to act like this to Senior Feng Fei? Don't you think that's too rude? Di Feng, am willing to accompany you instead. Di Feng suddenly smiled. His manifestation burst into existence, and a blood-colored figure appeared within it, unleashing boundless emperor might. This is the Blood Emperor's aura. Did he not die? This time, Nian's expression changed. He had inherited some memories of his ancestors and was familiar with this aura. Nian, you traitor of the ancient family alliance, I'll settle our enmities today. Di Feng's figure vanished. Following that, a wave of blood-colored qi erupted. From within this blood-colored wave came a giant hand that smashed toward Nian. In that instant, a spiritual and bloodline suppression crashed down, making everyone feel like they were being crushed. It felt like they were being pressured to kneel. What's going on? This Emperor might is 100% authentic. Did the Blood Emperor borrow Di Feng's body to resurrect? Nangong Xiu and the others' expressions changed. This Emperor might made them feel pressure, both physically and spiritually. In this state, it was impossible for them to fight properly. Just what had happened to Di Feng. It was no wonder that Di Feng had dared to challenge Nian. He had come prepared. Nian's fury soared. The palm crashing toward him gave him no choice but to counterattack. You're asking for it, roared Nian. He knew that as soon as he turned his attention to Di Feng, he would be unable to stop Feng Fei. Boom! Nian unleashed the arrow on the heaven-swallowing sun-hunting bow, while the giant arrow in his manifestation followed, piercing into the hand. The hand and arrows exploded at the same time. After that, a muffled bang came from within the sea of blood. It seemed that Di Feng had been injured. The blood sea shuddered, and blood swords shot out of it at Nian. Sorry Long Chen, there's been a surprise. Once I kill him, I'll come help you out. Nian was unable to ignore these blood swords. He actually charged into the blood sea, and explosions began to echo from within. The two of them began an intense fight, but it was impossible to see them within the blood sea. Feng Fei instantly escaped Nian's lock and appeared in front of Long Chen. Release Zhao Ritian, or don't blame me for being merciless. Why are you wasting time talking? Get me out of here, roared Zhao Ritian from within. His voice was hoarse and panicked because Long Chen's flames were burning away his metal source. Seeing that Feng Fei wasn't directly attacking, he grew even more panicked. His resentment spread from just Long Chen to Feng Fei. Release him? Impossible. Since he wants to kill me, he has to be prepared to be killed by me. Of course, you can attack me and try to save him. I'll wait for you to attack me, that way I'll have a reason to kill you as well, said Long Chen, tightening his hold on Evil Moon. Killing intent blazed in his eyes. He didn't like Feng Fei. He might even hate her. He hated how arrogant she acted, as if all the world's people had to obey her. It was like in the eyes of the divine families, the experts of the martial heaven continent were an inferior species that should crawl beneath their feet. If they rebelled, it would be a defiance of what was simply right, and they deserved the death penalty. However, he had yet to have a true clash with Feng Fei. At this time though, if Feng Fei tried to stop him, there would be nothing to discuss. He would kill her. You're too arrogant. Since you refuse to do things nicely, don't blame me for bullying the weak. Feng Fei also grew angry. She crossed her hands, and a phoenix cry rang out. A multicolored phoenix condensed in the air and shot at Long Chen. In their last spiritual strength competition, the two of them had both been injured, so this time Feng Fei was prepared. Her life's soul beast was completely different from before. Soul energy shook the sky. It was unknown just how many times stronger it was from last time. Feng Fei's soul energy had vastly strengthened after reaching the fourth step of Nether Passage. Furthermore, she also had her own pride and didn't want to take advantage of him. She competed with him in spiritual strength, one of his greatest strengths. Long Chen raised his left hand. Spiritual strength condensed into a giant shield just like in their last competition. However, this time, Long Chen's spiritual strength was like a vast sea shining brightly. Waves crashed against the shield. When their two spiritual strengths crashed together, a ripple spread through the air that made every expert feel a sharp pain. Even as they circulated their own spiritual strength to resist, they cried out. It felt like millions of needles were stabbing around in their heads, making them feel enough pain to not want to live. When they recovered enough, they looked back up to see that Feng Fei's phoenix was biting at the shield. The shield was being torn through and broken, but it was constantly repairing itself. "Hurry up and kill him. I can't last much longer," roared Zhao Ritian. His aura was dropping rapidly. His body had been charred like firewood. It no longer had any luster. He had reached his limit any longer and he would be burned to death. "Your flame prison isn't controlled by your soul." Feng Fei suddenly realized that Long Chen's heaven-trapping flame prison wasn't being supported by him. Otherwise, this shield he had summoned should have caused it to crumble, allowing Zhao Ritian to escape. Feng Fei was unaware that it was Huolinger controlling it. Even without Long Chen's soul energy, it was very stable, enough to stop the weakened Zhao Ritian. "Quick!" roared Zhao Ritian. After that, no more sounds came from within. A sword suddenly appeared in Feng Fei's hand. It was unknown what material it was made of, but its body was the color of blood. After that, her manifestation shone behind her, and an ancient beast appeared. A fierce aura burst out of her. She slashed her sword at Long Chen. Zhao Ritian was going to die, so she finally unleashed her full power, combining her spiritual attacks with physical attacks. Blood-colored light erupted in the sky. Boom! Long Chen swung Evil Moon. The instant their weapons met, Long Chen's body trembled and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. With only a small portion of his spiritual yuan left, he was unable to stop Feng Fei at her full power. Suddenly, the land began to shake. The ground that had been crushed and compacted began to swell back up. The dragon altar began to unleash dragon might, and the experts hiding on top of it were kicked out. "What's going on?" Bang! The barrier of the altar exploded, and a wave of dragon might unfurled, sending the closest experts flying like meteors. "The divine bones!" Startled cries rang out. With the barrier's destruction, the divine bones were exposed. Long Chen looked at Zhao Ritian to the divine bones. Clenching his teeth, he gave up on Zhao Ritian and rushed toward the closest divine bone. Feng Fei's expression changed. "The divine bones have appeared." Everyone was delighted and tried to take the divine bones. However, the explosion of the barrier was still unleashing waves of power. Some people even coughed up blood from trying to charge through those waves. Only Long Chen was able to pierce through that wave to grab one of the divine bones. Feng Fei's gaze turned cold. Long Chen's power wasn't enough to fight her currently, so he had given up on Zhao Ritian. "The divine bones belong to the divine families," shouted Feng Fei. "Are they yours just because you say so? Then I say that the entire universe is mine," sneered Long Chen, ignoring her. Feng Fei panicked. She swung her sword at the flame prison, only for it to twist slightly. She didn't manage to break it, and the flames continued to burn intensely. Inside the flame prison, Zhao Ritian had no more power to speak. It was unknown if he was even alive, so Feng Fei's panic grew. Long Chen was truly sinister. This flame prison was both tough and flexible. Breaking it would take quite a bit of time. If she wanted to instantly break it, she would have to kill Long Chen. But Long Chen was refusing to fight directly against her and went for the divine bones instead. If she tried to kill Long Chen, he would dodge her. Even in his weakened state, he wasn't someone she could kill quickly. At that time, Zhao Ritian would definitely be dead. Feng Fei couldn't just watch as he was killed, so she needed to destroy the heaven-trapping flame prison. But then the divine bones would fall into Long Chen's hands. No matter what she did, Long Chen would be the winner. This damn Zhao Ritian. Feng Fei wished Zhao Ritian had died earlier. If he had just listened to her and not been so arrogant, Long Chen wouldn't necessarily have become enemies with them over the divine bones. Bang! One explosion came from Feng Fei striking the heaven-trapping flame prison. Another explosion came from the divine bones. Long Chen had just been about to touch the first divine bone when a foot-thick barrier of light forced his hand back. There's another layer of defense. Long Chen was startled. Not good, I used up too much of my dragon blood energy. I can't obtain the barrier's approval. This barrier was set up by the Dragon King. If Long Chen could use the dragon blood energy from the Dragon King, he would be able to take the dragon bones directly. However, his dragon blood energy had been used up in his fight against Zhao Ritian. This barrier no longer recognized him. Seeing that Long Chen was forced back, Feng Fei calmed down. She repeatedly attacked the flame prison, every one of her blows causing the world to tremble. As people were shocked at Feng Fei's power, they were also shocked at the flame prison's power. What kind of magical art could repeatedly block a sovereign sprout's attacks? They were unaware that the flame prison was being supported by the Nirvana scripture, meaning that this entire world's flame energy was supporting it. Feng Fei was currently trying to break the entire world's flame energy. This was also why someone like Zhao Ritian could be trapped inside. Only those personally experiencing this attack would know just how powerful it was. Feng Fei was truly powerful. With each of her attacks, she exhausted a portion of the flame energy. It was unknown what kind of power she was using. Big brother Long Chen, she's too powerful. This world doesn't have enough flame energy, so I can't stop her much longer. Transmitted Huolinger. It's fine. Don't force yourself. Once this world's flame energy is exhausted, release him. Don't harm your source, replied Long Chen. Huolinger was at too much of a disadvantage facing Feng Fei alone. After all, the enemy was a sovereign sprout. Long Chen didn't want Huolinger to risk herself. The other experts were also trying to take the divine bones, but they were unable to charge through the waves of power as quickly as him. They were doing their best to get closer. That's right. Long Chen suddenly took out the bone tile, using it. This was the bone tile that had absorbed the Dragon King's essence blood stone. As a result, the light barrier around the divine bone grew gentle, and it didn't force Long Chen back. Long Chen finally managed to grab the divine bone. Without a second glance, Long Chen tossed it into the primal chaos space and shot toward the second divine bone. What? Long Chen already obtained a divine bone. The barrier's power is weakening. The other experts' eyes reddened. Those divine bones could be considered a step toward becoming a god or immortal. Furthermore, after taking one, the barrier's power had weakened considerably. They crazily charged forward, but while they were still several hundred meters away, they were unable to get any closer. That made them roar helplessly. The difference in power was too great. Despite the divine bones being right in front of them, they didn't have the power to take them. That feeling of powerlessness made them feel like weeping. Boom! Flames exploded. Feng Fei finally shattered the heaven-trapping flame prison, and Zhao Ritian's black body appeared. Feng Fei suddenly slammed her foot on his body, causing him to explode. Everyone jumped. After putting in all that work to save him, her only goal had been to personally kill him? Had this world gone crazy? Just at this moment, Long Chen managed to grab the second divine bone and shot off toward the third one. The barrier's power weakened once more, but most of the experts had given up their desire to fight for the divine bones. It was because Feng Fei was now charging over furiously. Whether or not they could grab one of the divine bones, they wouldn't have a chance to enjoy it anyway. Feng Fei hesitated between the third and fourth divine bones. Instead of going directly at Long Chen, she charged toward the fourth one. She would get one first before anything else. If she chased after Long Chen and he managed to take the third and fourth divine bones, she would gain nothing on the off chance that she was unable to kill him. This divine bone is mine. Just at that moment, a white-robed figure charged over, fighting against Feng Fei over the fourth divine bone. Everyone was shocked. Just who would dare to fight Feng Fei over the divine bone? When they saw who it was, a startled cry rang out from everyone. The Pill Fairy! It was the Pill Fairy Yu Qingxian. No one had seen her before, so she had to have just arrived. The dragon nest's interior was like a maze. It wasn't necessarily the strongest bunch that would arrive here first. As for why Feng Fei and Zhao Ritian were able to reach this place so quickly, it was because they had a map. The Pill Fairy's arrival made Feng Fei coldly shout, "The divine bones here belong to the divine families. It has nothing to do with you, so scram." Feng Fei was truly angry now. Zhao Ritian had lost to Long Chen, and Long Chen had taken 2 divine bones. Moreover, she wasn't confident in being able to force them out of him. Now all she wanted was 1 divine bone, but someone else actually dared to interfere. All things in this world were created by the gods, so they belong to the gods. As a divine daughter, they are mine, retorted the Pill Fairy icily. The Pill Fairy was blazing with divine light. Her very voice caused heaven and earth to echo her, as if responding to her. Long Chen's heart shook. After not seeing her for so long, the Pill Fairy's divine energy had grown even more powerful. Her spiritual fluctuations had also transformed. A sharp pain racked his heart. The original Pill Fairy was already dead, or perhaps it should be said that she had been taken over by this divine energy. There wasn't a single part of her left. As the pain racked his heart, flames of fury rose inside of him toward Lord Brahma and fallen Day Knight. They had actually turned the kind Pill Fairy into a puppet. Long Chen grabbed the 3rd divine bone. After obtaining 3, he didn't go over to the 4th one, nor did he go help Mo Nian. Instead, he just stood there, summoning his divine ring to help him recover. He watched the fight between Feng Fei and the Pill Fairy. "You lowly wench, you're courting death." Feng Fei furiously swung her sword at the Pill Fairy. Blaspheming a divine daughter is disrespect to the gods. You're the one courting death. The Pill Fairy snorted and waved her hand. Pill Valley's divine item, the Day-Night Furnace, appeared in the air. Boom! Feng Fei's sword slashed into the Day-Night Furnace, sending it flying. Space collapsed, and it was possible to see a black space appear devouring everything inside of it. Everyone hastily retreated from it, afraid of being sucked into the chaotic flow of space. Feng Fei's expression changed as she was also knocked back by the Day-Night Furnace. She shouted, "Assimilating with divine energy is still a form of external power. It will never reach the peak." Feng Fei held her sword with both hands, and a ray of light shot out of her forehead, illuminating it. Her manifestation grew, and the fierce beast unleashed an ancient aura. Feng Fei's aura completely transformed. After that, she slashed her sword, unleashing a harsh streak of sword light. Power is power. There is no external or internal power as long as you can control it. As for reaching the peak, it doesn't matter. All that matters is being able to kill enemies. Those are the edicts of the gods. The Pill Fairy formed hand seals, her voice emotionless. The Day-Night Furnace flew back, and divine flames wrapped around the Pill Fairy's body. This was a flame that could burn all things. The Day-Night Furnace grew brighter and brighter. Under her control, it began to revolve. Bang! Feng Fei's sword landed on the Day-Night Furnace, unleashing a blinding explosion of light. As a result, both of them retreated and coughed up a mouthful of blood. In this full power exchange, both sides were injured. Everyone was shocked that the Pill Fairy could injure Feng Fei. When had the Pill Fairy grown so powerful? Just at this moment, perhaps due to not being able to endure the impact of their attacks, the final barrier around the divine bone below them shattered, and it flew into the air. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.